OTB AM with Gillette Labs. Get the ultimate shave or your money back. Neon Night Edition available now.
Right, you're very welcome along. It is 7:30. It's Thursday morning and we have a full house. Shane's here. Shane, how are you?
Good morning, how are things?
Kathleen is here. Kathleen, how are you?
Morning. I'm doing well, thank you.
All the back page headlines about Vera Pauw are like, oh, worst day of my life and Vera out. But actually, while yesterday morning might have been bad for Vera Pauw, by the end of last night, she was in incredible form.
Yeah, she was in great form last night in the Mansion House. Off the Ball had an event there with her and the entire team, and I actually did think she was a little bit emotional at times when she was up on stage with Katie. She definitely hadn't shaken off everything that was there from earlier in the day. But yeah, no, it was a good celebration and a good send off for the team in general.
Emma said that, or maybe Phil said that at the end of the night she got up on stage after all the mics had gone and shushed the entire room and thanked everybody for putting it on and said that there was a night that they were never going to forget.
Well, that's pretty good. I must have missed that part.
You would have gone by that stage. I only lasted an hour. My kids had enough at that stage. There was like a very emotional moment on stage and my son looked like he was about to puke from tiredness, so I was like, okay, we got to go. It would have been worse if we'd stayed. But my middle child went home and slept with a football because Katie McCabe signed it for her. And it was definitely a night that she's never going to forget. So
it's all about, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean,
it's amazing.
I was like, oh, Shane Hannon would love this now. This is like her first proper autograph.
Yes.
Do you know?
Start the collecting.
You remember just how excited that was.
Franz Beckenbauer was my first.
Oh, wow, that's a pretty good one.
First in the post. Yeah.
No, in person.
Pat Kenny, I think, was the first.
Katie McCabe trumps Pat Kenny. sorry, Pat, but she does.
Because I think you were sitting just a row in front of me, Ger. I was sitting with Emma and Phil for most of the night, and like where the kids kind of, because the team were just like a row or two ahead of us again, then so were they kind of looking, being like, oh?
We arrived, a little bit earlier than everybody else, and Nathan was like, oh, I think they're going to try and get everybody out immediately afterwards, and they're going to be coming in after everybody else, so there's not going to be much chance to get stuff. So we were like, oh, and then once it emerged that we weren't going to be able to last to the end to stick around, where apparently they did stick around anyway and had great time and did whatever anybody wanted in terms of photographs and signing. I think they were actually...
They got up on stage and got a good few shots as well up there altogether.
And Q&A as well from the crowd. So it turned into one of those, we're having the time. So I made them in the middle of the switch around between one panel to the next go, and that was the only opportunity to do it. And we had to leg it.
Did feel like it felt really negative yesterday, didn't it? Like the whole day it felt like, oh, all the players that have missed out, it's very sad. And then I got to the point in the afternoon where I was like, okay, I want the ice cold beer in there. This is like, okay, the team's picked, the squad's picked, we move on. Nobody died. It's terrible for the players that didn't get picked.
It is.
The first World Cup for Ireland, but let's...
Because initially what was supposed to happen was that they were going to have that night last night, which was essentially a night for the family and supporters, and then the squad was going to be named, but then they pulled it forward 24 hours. A couple of weeks ago they made that decision. I don't know if it was made public a couple of weeks ago.
It's only made public at the weekend.
Yeah, so they definitely had decided. They found out last night that they were looking at everything. It was like, no, we just need to get that done, rip the bandage off, and then we will actually be able to have a night of celebration with the fans and the families, and that's exactly what happened. There was a few football clubs. Nathan, a lot of members of Nathan's football club were at
that's funny, isn't it?
He did wonder how they got tickets. Nathan's a bit of
wheeling and dealing by Nathan.
Bit of John Blaney to our Nathan, isn't there?
Yeah.
I did love like the general competitiveness of like the teams that were there, because they were all sitting in like different parts of the Mansion House, and they would just like at one stage the Aisling went around the crowd and said like, where are you from, and whenever one team would say their name, another team would start booing them and stuff. It was good crack.
There was definitely beef between I don't know if it was Colester and Home Farm or Portmarnock and Colester anyway. But I think that like the atmosphere was incredible, like really incredible, and so the first guests were obviously Katie McCabe and Vera Pauw, and as you said, Vera was still a little bit totes emotion in the middle of it, but Katie McCabe is on it, like definitely, we're absolutely ready for this, looking forward to
Steely-eyed.
And then the next panel was three legends, and everybody was rapt. Like the current players were rapt watching the stories from the first international 50 years ago. And is it our record goal scorer?
Olivia O'Toole.
Yeah.
I don't think Nathan and Aisling asked a single question during that. Like, they just let the three of them go off, and it was perfect.
54 international goals.
Jeez.
What was her line? Official goals. There must be a lot of other goals that are somehow unofficial. And I don't know, it was just a nice way to stitch that whole thing through. And then Amber Barrett and her dad, and it was like, and Chloe Mustaki and her fella.
Yeah, her fella.
We had to go by that stage. But Amber's dad is like, you know, one of the great Irish sports dads, it turns out. Just like
Donegal character,
just able to piece everything together, you know, like flawlessly. You can see where in the midst of her moment of like all-time great Irish sports moment, she was able to so eloquently capture the mood of her people and the country. She didn't lick it off a stone. Like
you just seamlessly go from like telling a story that had you in stitches to the next moment you felt like crying, talking about Crease Look and like what it meant for Amber to kind of pay that tribute to the entire community and what it meant for their family. It was a roller coaster of emotions, I have to say.
Yeah, and my little one looking like he's about to puke in the middle. This is inappropriate.
Oh yes,
this is inappropriate. But it was just great, and I can see how they were. And then Gavin James played a few tracks at the end. There was something else in between.
Niamh Fahey, Louise Quinn, and Denise O'Sullivan also got up and did a bit of a chat. And then when Gavin James was setting up, they also did a Q&A with the audience. So it was a mixture of the players asking them questions, and then various different people that were just there as fans and supporters asking them questions. I did like at one point there was one of the girls from one of the football teams. It was like, is Katie a bossy captain? And the entire team just erupted in laughter, and Denise was just like, I'll take this one. Yes.
That's fair. I think like it's good to hear that Katie had the steely-eyed missile kind of focus last night. And the thing is now it's 3 weeks today until that game against Australia, so you need to use that in a way. Like, it's still a while out, so you gotta, I guess, peak at the right time. But it sounds like the team are starting to get over the fact that a lot of their friends have missed out in the squad and maybe just focus on the tournament.
They're used to this.
Yeah.
Like these are the best footballers in their school, in their club team, and up to the point where they're playing professional football now, and they're used to like leaving people behind to play on teams. So we're all like, oh, isn't it terrible? And it is heartbreaking. And like, you know, there's never been a squad where the people who are just left out going to a tournament are forgotten about in Irish football. Maybe 2016, maybe I'm wrong with this. But generally, like, you become kind of quite famous because it's such a heartbreak for us, particularly the first tournament we've ever gone to. But the players are like, oh, yeah, that's because I get picked for a team week in, week out, and my friends don't get picked to play on the team. And I know it's different, you're going to a tournament, but actually they're cold hard killers. That's why they made it and we didn't. Yeah,
I guess that's the attitude that they have to have, you know. And even for the likes of Jamie Finn, I guess, being on the standby list, it must be an awkward one because you're still technically involved. And there's also like the French game next week, and there is a chance that someone gets injured or sick in advance of the eve of the tournament. So the likes of Jamie Finn just have to, I guess, stay prepared and ready, which is an awkward position to be in because in the back of your mind you're thinking, well, I'm not going to be at the World Cup, but anything could happen in the next couple of weeks.
But it's not like we've talked about this since like the night in Hampden Park. Like, someone was always going to miss out. There was always going to be someone probably in that squad who was going to be an absolutely loyal servant to Irish football and who like trooped through the qualifiers, was there for the disappointment of the Euros, was there with the team through and through, and was going to miss out. And for a long time we didn't know who that was, and it's really unfortunate that it is Jamie Finn for her family, and of course the team are upset. But like, this is the thing that I didn't really understand all that much yesterday. Whenever I asked Vera at one stage, you know, did you have a moment to yourself where you got to tell someone like Izzy Atkinson or someone who like was young getting into the squad, no one expected to actually be there, and they're absolutely delighted, and you know the excitement that there is, and like it's our first ever tournament. Like, I had listened to people for about an hour at that stage ask absolutely like doer questions, and I was like, has anyone forgotten that we're actually going to a World Cup and this is really exciting, and it's really great for like especially the likes of Denise O'Sullivan and Katie McCabe, who for so long we were like, will they ever actually get get the opportunity to show their talent and their skill at a major tournament. And even that response got a kind of dour answer. And like Shane, you saw me when I came back from UCD, I was just a bit like, God, I feel like there's nothing to be excited or happy about. And then the event last night kind of flipped that a little bit, which was really nice.
Yeah, because it should be a celebration at this point now.
Yeah, like, that's it now. Yeah. All that stuff is over. There's a friendly against France, then they get in the plane and away we go. And like
win the World Cup.
I mean, you do forget that we're playing. We've got the group of death, Olympic champions, home host nation, who are one of the best teams in the world.
Well, as Denise O'Sullivan said last night, I'm dreaming about those games. I can't wait. I feel like that's the attitude we should all bring in.
Totally, it totally is. Nathan was like, one of the best things about being Irish is that we get totally carried away. And Vera was like, yeah, ha ha ha, no. We're playing, after we get out of the group, then we have to play England. And then after that, if we beat them, are we scheduled to play the Yanks? Is it?
Yeah.
I know we only play England if we come second in the group. We'll top the group and avoid them. That's the plan.
Okay. Yeah. Fair point.
Definitely don't get carried away at all.
No. So the squads are in all the papers today. It's worth keeping them if you have kids who are going to start getting on the bandwagon or getting into any interest in the football that's coming up over the next while, because it's going to be wall to wall. So get on board the bandwagon. It's not too late. There's plenty of room for you. It's 7:40 this morning. Here's what's coming up between now. We're going to pick our team for the first game, by the way, in a moment. Kathleen's team. Sue Ronan is going to talk to us at 8. Alison Miller is going to do the depth chart for the back three at 8:20 for the Rugby World Cup. 1 JD, please, at 8:45. Make ours a double this morning. Davy Burke coming in at 9 o'clock, and we'll play out with Paul Rouse at 9:30. At 7:41 this morning, a reminder, OTB AM Live with Gillette Labs. Get the ultimate shave or your money back. Neon Night Edition is available now. Who's starting for that Ireland team, Kathleen?
So some positions I'm not entirely sure about, but I think it'll obviously be Brosnan in goal. I think McCabe will do left wing back because she'll take on Ellie Carpenter, which is going to be like probably the jewel of the game, in the sense that if Ellie Carpenter can keep Katie McCabe quiet, then that'll be annoying for us. But if not, she could do a little bit of a job. Ellie Carpenter is also a Katie McCabe style player who likes to scramble up the wing and kind of get herself in a forward position. I think Payne will be on the other side. And then in the back, I think it'll be Quinn, Fahey, Connolly. Midfield is the one that I'm a little bit unsure about. So I'm pretty sure, judging by what Vera said tomorrow, if Farrelly is fit and firing, which I think she is. I saw she was walking around last night with something on her wrist. It looked like a kind of support, but I assume that's not stopping her play too much at the moment. O'Sullivan. People are saying that this is a bit controversial, but I do think Shiva might start in midfield. I don't think Vera brings her, upsets the entire group, has the whole Jamie Finn thing for her not to be a starting player. And then Carusa up front.
How close is Amber Barrett to a start?
This is the thing, I don't know, because I think that if Vera does actually try to play in the way that they did in the US, I think Carusa is probably more suited to that setup, and that Barrett will come on and be able to make an impact, because I think Carusa is more of that player that can melt into the midfield and help with that sort of battle if needed, whereas Amber is probably better as an out-and-out forward.
So what was your formation?
5-4-1.
Okay, and so the one is Carusa up front.
Yeah.
Who's your right wing back?
Heather Bain.
Okay.
So who's looking after Sam Kerr? Is Sam Kerr someone you look after with a singular focus, as in
a reducer early on? Is that what you're asking?
Well, maybe an Overmars job, possibly.
Well, see, this is the thing, because I have talked to a couple of Australians about this, and they're like, oh, the Irish are only focused on Sam Kerr, and like that's what we want, and that totally is what they want. They want us to like double mark her, play her out of the game, and then Caitlin Ford will come in and score a screamer of a goal. Like, there are far more talents in that team than just Sam Kerr, and it's really important to silence her and make sure that she doesn't make those runs in behind our defensive line and poaches the goals in the way that she can. But also there's someone like Caitlin Ford for me is a more technical player probably than Sam Kerr, and is able to play the ball in herself a bit more. Sam Kerr tends to not wait for the balls to come into her, but she's dependent on someone delivering her in good balls a lot of the time. And also the frequency of them coming in. So like if you look at Sam Kerr's stats, the amount of balls she gets versus the one she actually scores, there's quite a disparity there. So she actually misses quite a lot of shots, but the difference is that she gets a lot of shots off, so that's why she ends up getting a lot of goals. So I think it's going to be a difficult one for us to kind of contain their general forwards.
Okay, we'll come back to that a little bit later. Spectre, of course, says need more Mayo versus Dublin chat. We'll do some of that with Davy Burke, the Roscommon manager. He has obviously played both sides in Champo this year, so we will definitely ask him for his thoughts on that. Are people getting excited about this yet, or is it just going to be a cakewalk? Are Mayo ready for this Dublin team yet?
I don't think it'll be a cakewalk. The word chaos has been used a lot in the build up to this game. Like I think it was Lee Keegan and Dermot Connolly were out for media this week, and they were using that word and saying Dublin just need to avoid that chaos, because once it goes to chaos, of course Mayo just lick their lips and enjoy it. I personally think Dublin will win this game, but it certainly will be a close one.
Every Mayo fan I've talked to in the last couple of days since the draw was made is absolutely buzzing for this. They're delighted with the draw. They were like, this is a team that we want to play.
Are they delighted because it's like a plausible excuse if they lose?
I don't feel like Mayo minds work that way though.
I think they do.
I think they're closer to like Irish football fans going to a World Cup tournament who are like, yeah, we're going to do unreal, and not actually acknowledge the realities of the situation.
I don't know. I think most Irish fans going to a World Cup tournament know that we're singing "You'll Never Beat the Irish," ironically.
Mayo have a number of things from the Galway game that they have to address, like the kickouts from Colm Reap. Like the kickout retention was horrendous. I know there was a strong wind in Salt Hill, so that has to be taken into account, but Galway's percentages were so much higher. I just, like, when you look at that Dublin team,
I think there's a possibility Dublin blow them away. I do think that, like, this could be one of those, because there's never. There have been a few times where it's just been like, thanks very much, kid brother.
All the talk has been it's Dublin Kerry, but there is a far stronger chance for quote unquote upset on Saturday in the first game. Kerry Tyrone, like, Tyrone are licking their lips for this one.
Who's a bigger price? I haven't checked.
I'd imagine Kerry are marginal favourites.
No, as in who's a bigger upset? Like what? Who's a bigger underdog
between those two games?
Yeah, are Tyrone bigger underdogs than Mayo? I'll look that up for you in a minute. But
yeah, that'll be a close one, but I just think Tyrone are starting to steamroll a little bit, starting to play well. The Donegal game, you can't really read too much into it. Again, a lot of wind in Ballybuffet, but it was a very impressive performance. And I mean, it's two Canavan brothers and McCurry shoot the lights out together on one given day, then I mean Kerry are going to struggle, and this is exactly what Kerry fans will want to hear. They'll be probably laughing at me at the moment saying this, but Tyrone are definitely geared up for this one, and I think it's going to be a far closer game than some people expect. This could be Kerry's championship over, and I know Anthony Moyles was kind of suggesting similar, but I just think Tyrone are they're there and ready, and it feels like almost a couple of years ago when Tyrone beat Kerry in that semi-final that nobody really expected that result. So yeah, I'd be interested to see. And then of course you have the big guns Monaghan and Armagh, the second game on Saturday. There's like, it's hard to call any of the games, even Derry Cork. Is Saturday a GA Go day? Is it the whole day? Yeah, okay, double right. GA Go. Really interesting piece by Ian Mallon in the Examiner this morning. He writes a really interesting business of sport column. It's called The Pitch, inside the business of sport. But today he's asking, is GA Go still a legitimate side business for RTE? It hasn't really been sucked in. No one's made the connection to the whole D Forbes RTE Tubridy story, but this is the first time anybody's put it in print. D Forbes, of course, was on the board and may still be on the board of GAA Go technically, because obviously they'd have to have a board meeting to accept her imminent resignation from that. And you know, there's a corporate governance aspect to having two people from RTE on the board of GAA Go. We've been raising these questions.
I think they confirmed to Balls during the week that she had stepped down from it.
Did they?
Yeah.
Right. Now, I'm fairly sure they have to actually have a board meeting to accept it, you know, so she can tender her resignation, but the board actually has to meet to accept that. I think, you know,
as they said, it was confirmed to Balls that she no longer occupies the role and that she has resigned from all her offices.
Right.
That's what they said.
Yeah, okay. Just from a corporate governance perspective, I wonder how they managed to do that. Did they have a board? How often does the board of GAA go meet? It's a question because so Declan McBennett, who's the head of sport at RTE, and Dee Forbes were the representatives of RTE as shareholders on the GAA Go board, and obviously there are other members of I think there's several members of the GAA on the board as well, and it just never seemed anything other than a conflict of interest to have a broadcaster who's supposed to be in competition with a sports rights holder having a partnership that then decides who gets what games. And these are the questions that Ian Mallon is raising, because on the 12th of July, on their traditional day, RTE, Virgin, Sky, TG4 and the Independent Broadcasters of Ireland are going to go before the Joint Oireachtas Committee for Media and Sport. Is that the same committee that was meeting yesterday? Is that the Media and Sport Committee, or is it just the media? I don't know. So anyway, the hearing is called The Future of Sports Broadcasting, and he raises three key issues. Should all GAA coverage be free to air, is the first question. The second question he asks, were Sky Ireland's rights offered back to the market in an appropriate way? And three, should RTE have a 50% stakeholding in a private enterprise which rivals its own channels? Because it seems to me that you can't make a decision on behalf of that company which also impacts your day job without bringing your day job's representation to the decision making for that company, and that company is designed to make profit. Like, there's no two ways about it. The whole point of GAA Go is to make profit and to provide a service and all that other stuff. But like, it's a private company. It's not a publicly funded company. It just doesn't make any sense. It doesn't make any sense why RTE are shareholders in that, and that's what. They're the questions that Ian Mallon is asking this morning, and it had kind of gone away for a while. Like, people were saying, Michael Verney wrote a piece yesterday, it hasn't gone away, but it had kind of seeped away. I think because what they did last week, obviously, was they put the Mayo Galway game on. That was on the Sunday.
That was Sunday on TV, yeah.
Even though it wasn't supposed to be. That was supposed to be on the Saturday, and that was supposed to be on GAA Go, but I think they realised that there'd be too much of a backlash to that, because the Tailteann Cup matches ended up being overshadowed by the fact that RTE had GAA live on two channels. And is that actually the best use of public money? Having competing Gaelic football matches on the same time on the only two paid for free to air RTE broadcast channels. Is that good use of public money?
The throw-in times were the confusing thing for me there. I was like, why are the Tailteann Cup games, what, 2 and 4 maybe?
Yeah.
And then 3 o'clock for, like, give them different times. Like, give people an opportunity if they want to watch both, to watch both. That was strange, because you're kind of flicking back and forth if you're a Downer Leash fan, I guess.
We're paying for it all.
Yeah,
we're paying for all of that as taxpayers.
So is the suggestion that some of those games should have been on GAA Go or a different channel?
The Mayo game was supposed to be.
No, I know it was supposed to be, but like, in an ideal world, would you see that on GAA Go, or
I personally
give TG4 some rights? Or
I mean, I think you could definitely it depends what you're trying to do. Are you trying to get the most amount of eyeballs on the game to grow the game, or are you trying to maximise the value of the rights? And that's a tension that an organisation like the GAA has, and I would argue with the Sky deal they managed it relatively well. And a lot of people didn't like the fact that Sky had rights. I thought that it was a perfectly legitimate thing to do for the GAA, and I think developing GAA Go is a perfectly legitimate thing for them to do as well. Like, there was a period where these games weren't being shown, and then they created a new package and they started to show extra games, originally on Setanta with the league, and then subsequently airball Setanta, and then they also created a package for Virgin TV3 back in the day, and then that TV3 package ended up becoming the Sky package, and then the Sky package becomes GAA Go, and GAA Go have loads more stuff as well. So I think it's perfectly legitimate for the GAA to develop their own over-the-top broadcasting platform. That makes perfect sense as an organisation. What doesn't make any sense is that the taxpayer, through RTE, is funding that organisation and then competing against it and driving up prices of rights that we then have to pay for as a taxpayer. It just doesn't. It's like, maybe my brain is too small to work this out, and maybe smarter people are like, no, it's perfectly fine for us to be on one side of negotiation and also be on the other. But I can't work that out because I've got a pea brain.
this notion that the GAA Go controversy is going to go away anytime soon. You mentioned the Michael Verney article, and I guess the reason for that article this week is because we're going to have the greatest footballer of this generation in a massive game between Kerry and Tyrone, by the way, behind a paywall in an All-Ireland quarter-final, which doesn't make, like, maybe you could have picked the two, clearly the two biggest games each day are Kerry, Tyrone and Dublin Mayo. Maybe you put one game a day on
well, this would have been behind a paywall the previous day with Sky. The quarterfinals have been behind a paywall for 10 years, or however long the Sky deal was.
The only difference with this now is that, like, you go into most homes, you go into most pubs. If that's where you're watching a game, you go into wherever it is, there's probably a Sky box there already. A lot of places don't have digital TVs that you can actually show GAA Go on, and that's the issue. Like, I don't think people will be. I think part of the reason why people stopped talking about it as much, I don't think it went away, but I do think people stopped talking about it as much, was because the football almost got to such a fever pitch that became more of a story than the GAA Go side of things. But I'd love to know what the discussions were within, like, RT and the different stakeholders in GAA Go when they were deciding the whole thing. Like, did they sit down and just think, people aren't going to notice that we have a vested interest in this thing and they're not going to care and we're just going to go ahead? Or did they anticipate this sort of backlash? Or because the thing is, like, most people aren't actually even all that annoyed about the GAA RT split interest in it. Like, people are just annoyed about the fact that they feel like they can't access it. I think it's more like a focus of the media, like, where is this all coming from? Why do RT have such an investment in it? And I think for the average person, it's more like, oh, well, now I have to, like, get a TV that can hook up to GAA Go or whatever it is.
That's the question. That it's the access. Like, there was a debate on even my local radio station at home, Northern Sound, yesterday, where they're talking, like, people of a certain vintage are saying, like, you know, from Monaghan and from Armagh, who just can't watch the match. They can't get to Dublin and they can't work out how to watch the game. Like, similarly, Catherine Martin, the Minister of Sport, was getting complaints sent her direction into her office over the last few weeks. That was reported on last week.
But it also shows, like, how spoiled to a certain extent we've been in our GAA coverage over the last. There has been so many options. Like, when, say, League of Ireland TV came out, people were delighted because they were like, oh, it's actually an opportunity to see more games and actually see more. And, like, technically, GAA Go is giving us that opportunity. It's just not been done massively well. There
was one incident last week or the week before? Someone had said that, like, they were trying to get basically GAA Go set up in a nursing home somewhere in the country where the county was playing. I think it could have been a Mayo match maybe a few weeks ago, and everyone was excited. They were like, we'll get the GAA Go set up, but then the Wi-Fi was nowhere near good enough in the nursing home to actually show the match. So,
but that's like a structural problem with the country more than it is an issue with GAA Go. Like, you couldn't get a Sky satellite where I live for the last, like, 5 years.
Yeah, but it brings up another discussion completely, you know. But
but that's the thing. It's like narrowing down into the actual issue of, like, that sort of stuff isn't a GAA Go problem. That's a problem that our government hasn't put in the right infrastructures in rural Ireland to make these things accessible, to make it. And, like, it did improve a little bit over COVID because more people were like, oh, I'm going to move out of Dublin and go to the west of Ireland and live there. Oh, there's no Wi-Fi. We should improve that, or whatever. Like, it has made incremental changes, but that's not a fault of GAA Go when you're having these conversations. Like, it'd be one thing if the product itself wasn't working, but that's a product of something else.
The Carpet Man says people paying hundreds a year for Sky, etc., yet moan about a few quid GAA Go. Go to the game then if you want to see it. I mean, the whole point, I think, is that you can't go to every game because, you know, you have exterior lives, and also lots of people can't travel for whatever reason. You mentioned nursing homes there. You know, but you do have to try and make this available to the most amount of people possible. The software is getting better, and our internet coverage is getting better. Like, there is now 4G/5G everywhere, so you can get it to your phone and you can cast it, but it does take steps. That's the thing. Like somebody else was saying, if you want to watch Sky, you can pick up your remote control. It's far more difficult to set up GAA Go on your TV. It's Edward Freeman. Sorry, Ger, but you've advocated for this change in championship structure. The condensed nature of this new structure results in games clashing, says Michael. No, Michael, they literally moved the Mayo Galway game from the Saturday to the Sunday so they could give it to free to air RTE. That's what happened. The GAA realised that this was going to be a massive shit show if that game wasn't available, and they moved it. Maybe there's another reason. Maybe there was another reason explained in the papers, and if there is, then we will correct the record on that on tomorrow's show. But you know, there was that game could easily have been played on the Saturday. there was no reason for it not to be played on Saturday.
Yeah, and that commentary talks about the people moaning for paying a few quid for GAA Go games. Look, I have paid for GAA Go games. There have been occasions where maybe I couldn't get to a Monaghan match, or there's another match that I want to see, and I'll happily pay the 12 quid. I actually think that there's an issue there in that Kerry Tyrone for €12 or Armagh Monaghan for €12 is great value, but like it was the same price during the league for Division 3 and 4 matches on GAA Go. Like, you're paying 12 quid for that as well.
Yeah, so
and clearly the people paying that amount of money is far less for those games than the games this weekend.
Obviously, way more people next year are going to buy the full year package because they realise that there's value to be had. You might watch 7 games on GAA Go over the course of the year, and then suddenly it's tenner as opposed to the 12 quid. Or maybe you'll watch all of them and it's like €1 a game. Which I don't know if anybody actually has the bandwidth to do that. GAA Go is aimed at diaspora primarily. RTE should not have any ownership of it. It's too cozy a relationship, really. Like, you were asking, where was there? Did they not realise that people would be upset about it? I mean, you kind of look at the arrogance of the decision making that's been going on in the organisation over the last couple of weeks in RTE, and you're like, well, someone shows you what they are, you got to believe them. GAA Go's great since the start of the year, says Kevy B. I'm in Australia. It's great to be able to watch the football at home regardless of the cost. I hope it stays in place. It's definitely going to stay in place, and it's going to get bigger and better, and you can see them starting to develop programming, and it's exactly where the GAA should be. And I think ultimately people will realise, a couple of things. The president of the GAA walked away in the middle of an interview with Virgin Media when they asked him about this, as opposed to saying, no, actually, you know what, this is really important to us. It's important to us for this, and this reason. And yeah, there have been difficulties with it, but these are the teething problems of any organisation. Anytime a massive change like this happens, there's always going to be a backlash, and we have to listen to what everybody's saying. And we've got to lobby government to improve people's access to broadband in rural communities. But we're leaders in rural communities. We have facilities right there. I'm sure we can come up with something. Instead, literally walking away from the question and not being able to answer it speaks to an organisation that is unsure about why they're doing this and why they're following this course of action. And if that uncertainty is there at the top of the organisation, into that comes the columnists who are like, this is bullshit. Why are we're not ready for this? So I think they absolutely are doing the right thing by having it. It makes no sense to be in competition with your main buyer of rights. Like, they're now your only potential buyer of rights for the main package, because you haven't convinced Virgin or Sky to stump up money. So, like, you're totally reliant on a single buyer in the market now. That doesn't make any sense. Anyway,
sorry, and those questions that Ian Mallon brings up as well, I am fascinated to see what answers RTE especially come up with on 12th of July. I don't know who's due to go appear before. Maybe Dee Forbes will appear by then.
No, she won't. She's gone.
We'd still like to hear some.
She won't be at that committee.
Who's going to be at that committee? Is Declan McBennett? I suppose we don't really know who exactly is going to be at it, but certainly RTE will have to have a.
McBennett is expected.
Okay, so it'll be fascinating to hear the answers to those 3 questions in particular.
He's basically given them the answers there, though. Someone from whom will be most interesting here will be the RTE Director of Content, Jim Jennings, an executive who so far has managed to remain outside of the Tubridy conversation, but who signs off sports rights at the network. So, not everyone has season tickets to McHale in Croke Park like me. Carpet man, it's not cheap, says Spectre Court. That was in response to the ones willing to just go to the games. GAA clubs can show games for their members who struggle to view. It's pretty simple, says Michael. That would certainly be a big solution, I'd say many GAA clubs are showing games, are they? Maybe anecdotally you could tell us in the comments. You can tweet us at OffTheBallAM, or you can tell us in the YouTube comments. Is it too obvious to have some on TG Cahir? It would seem that certainly having another buyer in the market, although also state funded, would be good for diversity, would be good for better coverage. Like, there's no way that RTE's coverage would have improved if Sky hadn't come in and done loads of stuff. And there's a complacency about the coverage, I find, so often, with like nothing changes and then suddenly somebody new to the market comes in like, oh, we can do that too. Well, we have the same. I remember like Super Slow-Mo eventually coming in and you're like, oh wow, great.
It feels like RTE is kind of dependent on the big name pundits rather than the actual product of, well, how are we going to break down and analyse the game, and that's what Sky got so right.
And their big name pundits aren't good anymore.
But I have to say, and sorry, like I had to watch and again, look, the GA Go was aimed very much, you can see with the comments of the diaspora, but also people within the country who just, as you say, Ger, have lives and can't get to I couldn't get to the Kildare Monaghan game, for example, had to watch it in GA Go, and like the coverage was brilliant. Like you have Michael Murphy, Aaron Kernan, Michael Meehan with Grania McAwain, and the punditry, there's no complaints about the punditry on GA Go.
Oh no, it's better,
and the actual analysis is class.
It's better.
Yeah,
it's better, like, for sure. I don't think there's any doubt about that.
No.
Would it be possible for Sky to host GA Go as its own channel rather than having to go through an app? They're going to get an app on the TV, and maybe eventually they'll just get a listing. But like, if you were Sky and the GA come to you and say, the GA and RT come to you and say, oh, so we're not going to, but we'd love to use your platform to get to. I mean, maybe Sky would be like, yeah, that's fine. That's just business. That's no problem. So maybe they'd be the bigger in that instance, and maybe that'll happen. Hi lads, I live in Portugal. Love GA Go. Fantastic product. Really good quality. I just connect the laptop to the TV with a HDMI cable. It's not that hard. I mean, in fairness, all TVs basically have HDMI cable, so that's also a pretty easy thing to do. And then the last one for now, Molly McGann. Ger, any dates for the live dadcast? Our baby hasn't arrived and my partner is puking me all ready to go. Lol. I think, is it puking or poking? So we're I think we're aiming for November. But we'll try and confirm that in the next few days. But if anybody is interested, dadcast@offtheball.com, we'll stick you on the list. Right. After this short break, Sue Ronan's going to talk to us about the Republic of Ireland. First, Ruth Fahey last night with Joe, talking Jamie Finn's World Cup omission.
Vera did say of Finn, that's the hardest decision. She's been part of the squad all the way through, but we have changed our playing system. So what is it about the new system that would have worked against Finn?
Yeah, I did read that quote and I thought about it. It didn't make a huge amount of sense to me because Jamie Finn, I think, can fit into any system. Being completely honest, I think she's so versatile. I'm looking through that squad at 23 and she's one of the most versatile players that we have. She featured in Ireland as a defensive midfielder. She can play as a full-back, left or right. She's done so with Birmingham. I feel like she's one of the most adaptable players. That's just my honest opinion on that one, that I think she would fit into any system, whether it's a 5 at the back, 3 at the back. She can play left or right side, centre half. She could nearly throw her as a wing back if you had to. I genuinely think she could adapt her game in that sense. I think she's more adaptable than other players in the squad. I'm looking at names like Ciara Grant, Diane Caldwell. There's arguments for and against all these things. This is the way it was always going to go. There was always going to be at least 1 or 2 massive omissions. I think Jamie Finn has been really hard done by, and I'm pretty good at her. She's had, I think, 6 of the qualifying campaign games. She played against Scotland, that massive game, but I suppose the squad, you don't pick it on past history, you don't pick it on emotions, you pick it on form, and Vera has stated that she doesn't fit into the system, then that's her decision.
OTB AM.
The Sports Breakfast Show from Off the Ball. It's Galway versus Kilkenny. But not as you know it.
It's the fastest I've ever seen you run in your life, bro.
The Hurling Pod Live is off to the Port Gosh Energy Theatre in Dublin this July, and you're invited.
I'll be joined by my co-host James Skell and Paul Murphy on the night.
Start the leveler, he'd say, and the tractor is coming after us.
As we debate the highs and lows of the 2023 season and preview the All-Ireland Hurling Final. Plus, we'll be announcing some more hurling legends to take the stage with us.
It was a rook, I got confused.
It's happening on July 20th at the Bord Gosh Energy Theatre. It's an exclusive off-air event. Tickets are limited, so don't delay. Go to offtheball.com/events for more.
Bord Gosh Energy, proud sponsors of the All-Ireland Senior Hurling Championship.
This is what inter-county hurling is it? I should have stayed at rugby.
OTB AM with Gillette Labs. Get the ultimate shave or your money back. Neon Night Edition available now.
Right, Sue Ronan, good morning to you. How are you?
How is it going, lads? All good?
Yeah, pretty good. We were talking about the switch from so all the back pages today are talking about Vera Pauw and how difficult it was for her to make the decision, but the back pages aren't aware of the fact that last night in the Mansion House the team gathered, Vera was there, all the friends and family were there, and they had an incredible night where they reflected on the journey that they've been, but also there was just this palpable sense of excitement and expectation. So sport is really cruel for the people who are going to be left behind, but for the people who are on the plane, this is the moment of a lifetime, and that's really where their focus needs to be now.
No, absolutely. And I mean, look, my first reaction, or the first thing I want to say is I want to congratulate all those that have made the squad. It's a fantastic achievement. You know, they're on the world stage now for the first time at a major finals. Matches are going to be beamed into every living room worldwide. Like, there'll be billions watching this tournament. And if they do well, it could change their lives, you know. But of course, we want to remember those that have missed out, commiserate with them. It is a tough time for them. They're going to need a lot of support in the coming days from those close to them. But, you know, I think we do have to focus on those that have actually made the squad now. And looking at the squad, I mean, like, it is a strong squad. It's well balanced. There's probably a nucleus of players that have been there for a long time that probably picked themselves. We've got some real quality in the squad, and I've said it before. We've world-class players in O'Sullivan and Katie McCabe. I mean, they're just super players. But there's a real mix there as well of experience, of youth. You have versatile players who can play in different positions, and that's really important in a tournament scenario. And apart, I suppose, from one or two new faces, it has been pretty settled in the last year or two. So I'm still confident that we'll do well in our group. I really am.
There's a couple of things I want to talk about before we get into the nitty-gritty of the squad. In the middle of, Vera and Katie McCabe were the first guests on last night, and in the middle of it, Vera made one of her analysts or backroom team stand up and pointed out the incredible work that they'd done. And then she told a story about when Scotland played Austria in the qualifiers. It was the playoff situation. We knew we were going to play one or the other. And she asked for 3 scouts to be sent to the game. And, you know, normally you send 1 scout to a game. And she had asked for 3, which is obviously a request for resources. And there was no question. It was 100% straight away. This is Vera's story. And then the 3 scouts went to the match and worked through the night. So at 9 o'clock the next morning, all of the technical analysis had been done. The start of this story was actually Katie McCabe saying that she was looking over Courtney Brosnan's shoulder on the bus on the way to Hampden Park, and Brosnan was looking at penalties, and specifically the positioning of where the penalties would be taken, and McCabe was like, she's on it tonight. And then lo and behold, Brosnan saves a penalty in the first half, and McCabe in the run-up goes, she's going to say this, I know, because I've been watching it. But apparently all that work had started in the immediate aftermath of the Scotland-Austria game, where the 3 scouts had stayed up, worked through the night, and provided the information for the team the next morning, who were then ready to go. And I just thought, like, this is chalk and cheese between the level of preparation that went in Saipan when the men's team were last in the World Cup, and the distance that we've travelled. And sometimes, you know, we can still get stuck with the FAI, blah, blah. But actually, there was a troop of people who came in with the management team last night, and it was as big a backroom team as you're going to see in any professional sports environment. And it just felt like they're being given every chance. And so we should pay proper testimony to the FAI and to Vera for driving those standards, and for everybody who's involved.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I mean, we've spoken about it here before. I mean, the team have everything they need to have around them now. Unfortunately, they had to make a huge stand years ago, we all know, to really get those resources. And things have definitely pushed on and moved on since then. I mean, they have their standalone sponsors now. And you've probably all seen the incredible videos that have already been put out by Sky about the squad announcement, and just in terms of, you know, little girls watching them. But they have everything they need. And you know, Vera wanted 3 scouts at that match. She got it, and they did their job. And I'm sure they were up all night dissecting every piece of the Scots and the Austrians, of course, at the time, because we didn't know who we were going to be playing. And then every player would have been fully prepared going into that game and knowing exactly what they needed to do, knowing exactly what their opponent or their likely opponent was going to do. And that's the level we're at now, and that is elite sport. And if you want to do well, if teams want to do well, you must have those resources around them. I mean, Vera mentioned yesterday looking at stats in terms of, I know we'll talk about selections in a minute, but that was one of the areas she helped her and her staff in terms of looking at Leanne Kiernan. And they have all the sports scientists around them now. They've the best medical staff. They want for nothing, really, you know. So all they need to do, I guess, now from the players' point of view, is go out on the pitch and perform to the best of their ability, and the staff have to prepare them to do that. So it's great to see.
I know your name as well, so you got to mention last night, along with the other previous national team managers. Like, it must be nice. You must feel a part of this in some strange way as well, because everything that's come before has been so important to getting us to where this team is at now.
No, absolutely. And look, it even goes back further than me. There was managers way before my time, and managers that I played under, and indeed volunteers. And I think the volunteers sometimes are overlooked. There was a huge volunteer culture in women's football back in the day when the FAI didn't want to know and didn't put any money, didn't even look after the national teams. I mean, volunteers literally put hands in their the hand in their own pocket, or held fundraising events to actually literally put international teams out. And I remember in my very first game, we went to Sweden, and the coach at the time was Fran Rooney. Actually, he could only bring 13 players because of resources. So he chose not to bring a second goalkeeper. Oh, and again, I know that's another thing we probably discuss now because it's light years away from that now. But he wanted to have 2 outfield players on the subs bench. And of course, what happens? Murphy's Law, in the first 5-10 minutes of the game, the goalkeeper gets injured and an outfield player had to go in. But, that's what happened back in those days. That's what we were up against. And there was a lot of people that were breaking down barriers over the years. And unfortunately, under the old regime and the FAI, we're getting nowhere. But things thankfully have changed and they've gone in the right direction now.
It's such a transformative moment, like, for Irish sport, and because again, a really excellent point Nathan made. Pre-COVID, there was a 20x20 event, and he said there was 15 or 20 of our best female athletes were there, and everybody was pointing at Sonia, who I think was there, and was saying that she was the kind of main icon in their life as a child growing up. And he was making the point that now, like, there are heroes in Gaelic football, there are heroes in rowing, there are heroes in boxing, there are heroes in, but the football team, like, we know how important football is in galvanising the whole country, and we're about to have a tournament. So it's such a transformation, and it has, I think that, I'm not sure we fully understand that, like, we're in the midst of that transformation, and it's still got a bit to go.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I saw on social media the other day scenes that reminded me of Italia 90 or Euro 88 when Ireland qualified for their first major tournament. You had send-offs, parties down in Denise O'Sullivan's street. They were outside our house singing, there was pipes playing, there was bunting everywhere. And you're going to see that all around the country. And, it's really exciting. And I think, yes, there was disappointment the last couple of days. Players missed out, of course there was, and that'll be there for a while, and we'll all talk about it and dissect it. But I think the squad now is there, they're picked, they're settled, and it's just going to be fantastic. The send off when they're down there, just the word coming back from the camp, from the different media outlets, it's just going to bring us all together, I think, and galvanise, and hopefully in terms of women's football, it really pushes it on in this country. And I absolutely think it can be the catalyst for greater growth than we've even seen.
What was the biggest surprise in yesterday's squad announcement for you, Sue?
I think probably the same as everybody. I think Jamie Finn, both actually, Jamie and Leanne, they were the biggest surprise for me, being left out. I suppose Leanne was coming back from injury, and I'll talk about her in a second. Jamie was fully fit from what I gather. She's had a great season with Birmingham. She's a very versatile player in my view. She's been involved right through the campaign. As we've said, she started early, like the big game against Sweden where we drew 0-0 away, and she played against Scotland also. I think she was only left out of 1 or 2 games for yellow card reasons during the campaign, so she's a vital cog. And I think Vera even commented only last year how important she was to the team against strong opposition because of what she does. And if you remember back to the 2 friendlies against Australia and Denmark, particularly against Denmark, she was a really vital player in the midfield, screening that ball, not getting through to the Danish top player, Pernilla Harder, who's their number 10 as such. And she just had a great game that day. She could have even been man of the match. So for her not to feature was a real disappointment. Was a surprise. It was a real disappointment, I'm sure, for her, of course, and family, etc. But from my point of view, very surprised that she didn't make it. Leanne then was the other one. Like, for me, Leanne is an out-and-out goal scorer. I think she offers something different maybe than what we have. She's scored goals at every level she's played. At underage level, she's scored a lot of goals for Liverpool in the Championship. I know she's had a bad injury this year, but I think she's done a lot to get herself. From what I hear, she's worked really hard to get back fit. I know she hasn't played much football, but unfortunately that first half, I suppose, was against Zambia, didn't do her any favours. In general, the team were poor. She had a few heavy touches herself, but for me, with 3 weeks to go to that Austria game, to get her back to fitness, I would have personally had her in the squad, because I just think she offers us something different off the bench. But look, at the end of the day, as we said before, coaches see different things. They're working with the players every day, so we have to go with what the coach has picked.
I know Jamie Finn, of course, made the standby list. That word you used, Sue, about Jamie Finn, versatility, I think that's what surprised most people, because I guess at a World Cup, you never know who's going to get injured. Maybe having a player who can play a multitude of different positions, as Jamie Finn has clearly demonstrated she can do. That seems to be the real reason why it's such a surprise, because those are the players you need at tournaments.
No, absolutely. And Jamie she can play as a holding midfielder. As we mentioned, she played in that position in a couple of games. She can also play fullback and wing back as well. Like I'm not sure I've seen her play wing back. I've definitely seen her play fullback, but she's a very fit girl. I think she was a personal trainer before she went full time in England. So she's very, very fit. She's very good at holding the ball. She's very good at passing. It's just a huge disappointment for her and a big surprise. But again, it's testament to her and her character. She came out with a beautiful tweet last night. She was still, her ambition, of course, is to get back in the team. It is a little consolation to her. It's a bit of a consolation, I guess, that she's in that travelling reserve. And look, you never know what's going to happen with 2 matches to come, a couple of weeks of training. She might still squeeze in. You don't want to wish anyone, of course, bad or an injury on anybody, but there is that potential for her. She's still on the plane, I guess. But when you look at Leanne, unfortunately, her dreams have been crushed for now. So look, elite sport, unfortunately, that's the nature of it. The coach and her staff, I've no doubt they sat down, and Vera said it herself, they sat down for many hours, night and day, probably sleepless nights. I'm sure they all put their cards on the table. They all made valid points, all the backroom staff. It would all have been dissected. They would have looked at, okay, who's our starting 11 if everyone's fit? Who's our next best players in the different positions? Then who can we move around? Maybe who's fit? All those things come into it, and unfortunately for Leanne, she's lost out. Jamie has a half a chance, I guess, but they both lost out in the squad, so they were probably the two big surprises for me.
The fact that the game is a sellout, 80,000, that it's the opening fixture against the host nations, look, this might go badly for us. There's a range of outcomes here, from 3 famous 1-1 draws that get us through somehow, to 2 1-1 draws and a victory, to it could be Euro 2012 where we're singing songs and everyone's like, why are we singing in celebration, and it's a funeral song. But look, at the same time, we're in this sweet spot now where actually, you know what, we've got some world class players and something magical might happen.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I said it earlier, we do have world-class players, and I mean, we need to start believing that if we don't already, or those who maybe don't see it, we do have world-class players. And, we have players that are really, really good, that you might necessarily say world-class players, but they're excellent players as well. And we've players that are playing at the top level in England. We've players now with huge experience. I'm delighted to see Niamh Fahey back in the squad. I have to say, I'm delighted she's fit. I think she adds a huge amount, not only in terms of versatility, but, she's such a good player. She's such a great reader of the game. She's so much experience. She'd be a great leader around the squad also. But I firmly believe we'll come out of that group. I really, really do. I've already bought tickets for the knockout games, but I firmly believe we'll come out of that group. We've avoided the really, really tough top teams, maybe top 5 or 6 in the world, where it's difficult to get a result. I mean, you look at the 2 games against USA, we played brilliantly in those 2 games, but unfortunately we lost. They found a way to win. England are similar. Germany are similar, Spain are similar, France, after that, maybe Japan probably also, but after that, like, you know, we have top teams in the group, but they're definitely not unbeatable, and I can see us coming out of the group. I really can.
Well, that would certainly get the bandwagon rolling, Sue. That's exactly what we need. We do love an old bandwagon.
We absolutely do, yeah, no, for sure. I think, look, it's time now. You know, unfortunately, there is disappointment there, but we need to get behind the squad. We need to start galvanising and you know, celebrate them because they're going to do us proud in Australia. I'm certainly looking forward to the tournament. One
last thing, nobody's thinking about the Euros and Euro qualification, but the age profile of the squad, with the exception of the few elder statespeople that you've mentioned, is actually pretty good. Like, this team's going to be around. The profile's going to grow. This is a very sweet spot for them.
Absolutely, yeah, no, for sure. And I mean, the group we got, unfortunately, we're not in the A group of the Nations League, you know. So, like, the group we got, you know, I can't see us not winning any of those games. I'll be totally honest with you. So, yeah, and the experience the players are going to have from the World Cup, hopefully from a World Cup where they've done really well, they're going to come back. They're going to be raring to go against Hungary, Albania, and Northern Ireland. And you know, I'd expect us to be getting full points in those games. I'm pushing on and going up a level then for next year's competition.
And sorry, does that, pardon my ignorance here, is it the same as the men's, where that guarantees us at least a playoff for the Euros if we do top the group?
I think so. I'm not 100% sure because I know this is the first time they've introduced it as well, so I'd need to read the nitty-gritty myself, but they did say they were basing it on the men, so I would hope it does, but I definitely need to look into that. And
in retrospect, that's actually the best thing, is to be in that, because then, you know, you come off a winning series, you top your group, and then you go into the qualification group, and by that stage you've improved your seeding, so you get the benefit of actually having the wins and the confidence / momentum, and you know, playoff. Exactly, yeah. So maybe it's not the worst thing.
Things are looking good, I think.
Sue, good stuff. Thanks a million.
Thanks, guys. Take it easy.
Sue Ronan there, former Republic of Ireland manager, talking to us about the World Cup squad and the event last night, which I can't speak highly enough. Full credit to Sky for making everybody available and for the support that they've given the team. The new ad is out. I don't know if everybody's seen it, but like that whole point about the visibility and kids dreaming, they've captured it really, really well. And I just last night, I don't know how much of it is actually going to ever make it to air. I think that was kind of the whole point of it. I suspect some of it will, but keep an eye out on our social channels and on the radio for it.
I do think when people, and kind of referenced it there, the like 2017 in Liberty Hall, like if you had thought just 6 years ago,
it's incredible.
Like we would have a post like shared widely, thousands of people sharing that post yesterday when the squad was finally announced, that lovely video that the FAI put up. It's just such a turnaround in 6 years, and the interest as well. Like you talk about visibility, even over the last couple of years, to see the likes of Katie McCabe and Denise O'Sullivan and Amber Barrett on the sides of buses around the cities and even on billboards as well, and just being spoken about in TV advertisements and actually covering it properly. Like we've reached a point now in women's sport where we're just analysing it as sport, which is fantastic. So I mean, 6 years ago you could not have convinced me or anyone, I think, that we would be in this position. So really, really exciting few weeks ahead.
Yeah, an incredible turnaround from Liberty Hall all the way to, it's going out on air this evening. Nathan just told me, so the whole large parts of it are going out on air this evening. It's really like, if you want to feel good about life, tune in this evening to Nathan and Aisling talking to members of the Republic of Ireland squad, some legends of Irish women's football and more besides. OTB AM Live with Gillette Labs, get the ultimate shave or your money back neon art edition is available now. We haven't mentioned the fact that Arsenal are on a spending spree at the moment. So the Declan Rice deal, he's doing a medical, they've given him permission to do a medical, which means it's basically, look, we haven't fully accepted it, but we accept it. We're taking your 100 million and the extra 5 that you've sweetened the pot with. There was just one part of me, and I'm sick. I don't want to do this.
Here we go.
I don't want to do this.
Do it though.
Well, like the top 2 most expensive British players of all time are now Declan Rice and Jack Grealish. And you're like, fuck me.
Yeah.
Pardon my French.
I hadn't thought of that. It struck me about Rice yesterday.
Just in the papers today, is like the list is like number 1, number 2. And I'm like, oh my God. Anyway, it's done. I'm finished.
But then, sorry,
I'm back.
Millions have been added to their price tags because they're English.
Whatever. I know.
Sorry, Gary Neville spoke in March. He was asked, what's Declan Rice worth? And he said 50 to 60 million. So the fact that now we're looking at almost almost double that. Sorry, double that if you're looking at the lower estimate of his valuation. It's certainly overpaying for Declan Rice in my opinion.
And I would say for Kai Havertz. Now we're going to do some work on the Kai Havertz thing, right? Because my instinct, like a lot of people's instinct, is that's a lot of money. And so where's he going to play? Is he going to play? Is he going to play in Gabriel Jesus' position? Is he going to play in Martinelli's position? Is he going to play in Odegaard's position? Where's he going to play?
Yeah, he probably complements Odegaard to an extent, but like
does he?
Well, I don't know. He certainly wasn't used in his best position at Chelsea, like as a false nine.
Was he not?
Well, I don't think so. I really think he was.
You watched enough of him at Leverkusen to come to that conclusion, did you?
No, but I mean, he certainly never reached the heights at Chelsea that he should have reached.
Why not? Based on what though?
There's probably turnover of managers there as well as an issue. Like he never got comfortable in the team.
Okay.
His goal scoring record was nowhere near where it should have been.
But maybe that's where maybe he doesn't score all the goals he's expected to. A lot of money they're spending on not a lot of players, on two players.
Funny though, you trust Arteta. And,
I don't. I don't.
No.
Why? One season.
No, but I think Arsenal.
Anyway, look, we gotta go. I'm getting in my ear here. So the Arsenal fans, come on,
let us know.
Let's be having you. Don't miss all the action in rugby daily today in your OTB podcast network, bringing you everything you need to know about rugby. Get your favourite local restaurants delivered to your door with Deliveroo. Just open up the app, browse some great offers, take your pick, and they'll take care of the rest. Deliveroo, food, we get it. We're doing our depth charts in advance of the Men's Rugby World Cup. Alison Miller, good morning to you. How are you?
Morning, guys. How are you?
Good, thanks. You played sevens, didn't you?
I did, yeah.
So the men have qualified for the Olympics and the women have qualified for the Olympics. This isn't this is basically justification for the whole project, right?
Oh yeah, like in fairness to him, Antonetti, like I suppose we'll criticise him for the work that he did, maybe with the women's 15s game. He did really, and himself, I suppose, David News 4, really brought that sevens programme into where it is now, and fair play to those guys, because you have two teams that have qualified, and especially the women qualifying off the series, like they had two other attempts to qualify. The men qualified through the Euros, so great work, the two of them in there. So it's exciting to see the two teams do it, and hopefully they can push on and be looking at medals.
Let's look at the depth chart that you picked for us. So we're looking for the back three here. I think everybody knows who our first choice fullback is at the moment. Speaking of the sevens, it's Hugo Keenan. He is absolutely imperious. There's been no sign of his form dipping at any point. Touch wood, and not trying to attempt anything. But after that, you've gone for Jimmy O'Brien number 2 and Mac Hansen number 3.
Yeah, it's you're looking at the players in the back three. It's very wing heavy, and you're looking at, like, you're talking about Keenan, like, I love the way he plays, his speed endurance, his high speed meters to cover that ground, to work into, attacking and defensive positions. Like, we can go through all the things, we can go through in a few minutes, but I'd probably be looking at Jimmy O'Brien, quite a similar player than Keenan, probably not the finished article yet in terms of that development, but good player. He'd be my number 2. Hansen is there really, and he's not, he's playing a little bit of fullback for Connacht, albeit at lesser opposition. His skill set would suggest that he could do a job there, his aerial skills, his playmaking ability. But I don't think, to be honest, we're going to see him there at fullback in the World Cup unless something happens. But that'll be my thinking on it. But very wing heavy.
Yeah.
Most of your players there are your wingers. You're looking at Mac Hansen winger, James Lowe winger, Jimmy O'Brien played mostly on the wing, Nash winger, Earls winger, Stockdale winger. I know Stockdale has played 15, but it probably didn't work out the way we would hope at the time. So then really only Keenan and O'Brien then can do a job there for you.
So when we're not playing in the big games at the World Cup and they're resting Hugo Keenan, which never seems to happen, he basically has played more minutes, I think, than anybody else. Certainly there was a period where he had the most minutes under Andy Farrell than anybody. So who will play? Will it be O'Brien, do you think? Is he we're resting Keenan for this week because we got South Africa next?
I play O'Brien. Now the only thing is, we've seen Keenan play most games and play most minutes in a Six Nations, where you're trying to win a competition and you short turnaround. So like in this tournament, when you've got your, no disrespect to them, your weaker teams, yes, you might see someone different coming in and playing in that 15, and that's what you'd hope to see. But it's an interesting one there, like, because Stockdale's played 15, but he's been so out of form recently, and it'd be interesting to see, can he get that form back? Like, form is an interesting thing. I had to go back last night really to, it's nearly like I'd forgotten what Stockdale could do, and I know that kind of sounds strange, but I had to kind of go back and look at clips of him playing, and I was like, wow, like what that boy can do. So like, can he get his form back even for that wing position? Like, looking at the tries that he scored, like he intercept, his chips over the top, the lines he ran, his evasive skills. I know there was always an issue over his defence, which he ironed out, but it's nearly one of these things that more in any sport, you're trying to chase, get your form back and try and get back to your word. The more you nearly try, the less it happens. So I wonder, will it just come back for him? And I don't know how he's training at camp. It'll be interesting to see, can he get that flow back? Because when you watch, there was a highlights reel I was watching last night. He's just in flow, and that's to talk about sports person when they're playing well. He's in flow. So that'd be my thinking on it. Now people probably differ, but I would be starting O'Brien if when we're not starting Keenan.
He's also 27, Jacob Stockdale, Alison. So like, you know, if he can regain even some of that form from 2018, like we can have him for this World Cup, and look, he'll only be 31 for the next World Cup as well. So for the next coming years, he's going to be so important to us, as you say, if he can regain some of that.
Yeah, and like the thing about the wing is, and like he would have been like, you know, to me like a winger that I liked looking at his speed, but like I would be looking at him and I think in his probably his general speed, his pace off like the mark, reactions is all a bit off. And I think if you're a winger and those things are only even a slightly bit off, you're not finishing, you know, it can be a big difference in like whether your ability to beat someone or finish, and it can only be a little bit off compared to other positions because you are that pace of a team. So at the moment, like, he could be a little bit off, but that could make a huge difference in not being able to do the things that he can do. And I know that sounds like, well, it's a tiny bit off, but you think of a sprinter in athletics, and if they're off, they're off. But in the general terms of things, it's probably not huge times, like, you know, point something of a difference. But in that position, I think that's what I'm looking at him now. He looks sluggish compared to what he looked at, if that makes sense. Like, he just looks a bit
horrific injury problems. And here's the thing: the Ireland setup obviously know what he's capable of because they've been there when he's done those things. We had James Ryan doing his "You Had to Be There," and he said he was like world class at the chip through and regather, and he picked the try that he scored against the All Blacks, which when you go back and look at it is actually unbelievable. Like
unbelievable. And I'd ask anyone to go back and look at these because it has been a little bit that you kind of nearly forget. And like, there's not only just the chip throughs, but like I was looking at his in and out, you know, to the defender, bringing the defender in and out, and like those small things, the nuances of a winger, you know, his fend, the lines running off like 9 and 10, those goal slides coming through, like those strike runners that the wingers run. And they're so good. So I think I think if you've got a player like that, and I think it's testament to the management, you know that's in there. You just have to try and get it back somehow and get that form back. And
it was obviously James Tracy who also had James Ryan in his list. That was why I was getting them mixed up. But the point about that, I think that's the exact point. That they obviously feel like they don't think it's a lost cause because there's actually loads of other competition for the wing slots that they could be thinking about putting on the plane, but they're like, if we get Stockdale back to where he was, we can play him instead of any of the rest of the wingers, and it's not going to be a significant loss. Whereas if Stockdale's not at that level, then the first choice wingers, and we've got Lowe and we've got Hansen, we were, you know, spoiler alert, they're your number one in the two spots. Like, if Stockdale is where he used to be, then we don't mind if either of those are injured. But if he's not, then it's a massive step down.
Yeah, and I think, like they're looking at what his baseline was, and like you can get him back to that ability, and there's competition there, and he is different. Like, he's different to, like, you look at Lowe, like his big strength, that left boot, his ability to exit first. I know he had some difficult moments in Champions Cup final, that was difficult when he's trying to exit, but like James Lowe, that roaming winger, to get off his wing, like, he'll be hovering in around the back of the ruck, running those lines off 9 and 10. He's sometimes nearly plays like an extra back rower. He's a strong carrier in around the tight as well. Like, the small nuances, like, he'll be tackled, he'll release the ball, he'll get back on his feet, he'll gain a few meters, and his big fend, his defence has improved a lot over the last few years, and obviously James Lowe offloading ability, the ability to bring other people into the game. And like Hansen, is comfortable standing in at first receiver, and Andy Farr likes those wingers. He likes the wingers that get off their wing and get involved and add value and add work rate. And I think they're all different when you look at them, and sometimes not majorly different, but like, you can go through every winger and they are different. They have their different strengths, but I just still, the only thing that would kind of not worry me, but they're mostly wingers who've played a bit of fullback.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Well, maybe O'Brien, when he was coming through, could play basically anywhere and has played 13, so maybe he's the most likely to step in. You've got Lowe for the 11, you've got Lowe, Stockdale number 2 and Earls 3. They obviously love Keith Earls, and I think we all understand exactly why. They've given him, they announced ages ago that he was going to have a contract to the end of the World Cup, and then he comes back from injury and has this glorious final moment at Munster, we think, unless he goes back to Munster and plays another couple of seasons, because he doesn't look like he's lost a step.
Yeah, like, he's 34, 35. Is he 34 or 5? Which is, I think he's 35.
I'll do a quick Google here. You keep talking.
Do a quick Google there. I think he's probably 34 or 5. But
35.
35, is it? Like, unfortunately, that's kind of in around the time when you're playing that you're starting to lose that little bit of speed. But like, obviously he's injured. But I would have him there, and with his experience and like everything that he's done, and just his ability, I think he could still give you one last push. I think he's got that ability. I know of him down there at 3, but that's taken into consideration. He has been injured. We haven't seen him playing much a game time. Yeah, he has one good game, but like, that's not consistent. But at the same time, with his experience and with his mindset and everything that he's been through, I wouldn't put it past him to give us one last push in a World Cup and get the most out of himself and use that experience to, like, he's defended every position, or not every position, every scenario that he's had to defend being a winger. Like, you'll be put up with these difficult situations in games, and your experience will get you through that too. And if he can, nearly with the mindset, this is my last World Cup, and you can nearly, like, I felt when I was retiring and I didn't have much in me left, but I felt like you could pull together for, your one last go and get the most out of yourself. And I think he can do that. I think he can do it, but like, it's not guaranteed. But same time, I think he's someone that you have there and is capable of pulling out.
There's the leadership aspect as well, Alison, with that. Like, he won't want to hear this, but even if he's not playing, having someone of his personality type around the team hotel at a tournament like a World Cup for weeks on end, that's vital.
The ultimate professional, and you've young guys there that could learn a lot from him, and he would be that ultimate professional that might not play but has a really positive impact on the group, and as you say, is that leadership person there that pulls it together. But I still think, like, on the pitch, I know I have him number 3, but at the same time, he's there in the background, and he could do a job for you,
So he's not going as a mascot, basically. He's not just for the crack around the place.
No, you bring someone leadership, but you don't bring them if you don't ever intend them to play. Like,
you've got Hansen for the 14 jersey. You've got Hansen number 1, Calvin Nash number 2, and Jimmy O'Brien is number 3. So how close?
It's hard, because I was looking at, you're looking at these, right, 11, 14, and most of them, Lowe will always play 11. Stockdale has always played 11. Hansen for Ireland has played 14 because you have Lowe at 14. But like a lot of them aren't specialists 11 or 14, so it could change. I obviously had to put them in their categories, but it doesn't necessarily mean, do you know what I'm saying? Do you get what I'm saying? As in, I had to put them in 1, 2 or 3, but some of them, like Nash, can play 11 or 14. O'Brien could play 11 or 14. We haven't seen Matt Hansen play 11 because he's always been there. But anyway, that's kind of gone off on a tangent there. But Calvin Nash is probably your most informed winger at the moment. And look, Hansen has that, as I said, Farrell loves those untidy wingers that get off their wing, and you'll see with Hansen, his playmaking abilities, he'll come in there as an extra attacker and get that attack going. Very good in the air, like really, really good in the air. And we've seen some brilliant moments from him. But I like the way Nash plays as well. I love that strike runner ability of him as a winger, and he is probably the one coming in with the most form. The other guys have obviously come off the Six Nations and have had good performances, but been doing very well for Munster. And look, his defence doesn't seem to be an issue at the moment. Okay, we haven't seen him maybe at the highest level playing for Ireland, but it's not coming up to me as a problem. So he looks solid defensively. But you know, Jimmy O'Brien could be up there either. Like, there's not much between them, but I just think Nash on the form that he's carrying in.
So on the day when there's big matches, we know that your back three is your back three, and it's bang on.
Yeah.
Then we're really talking about who is the last person. So we're going to have a sub scrum half, we're going to have a sub out half, and then there's one other player who makes the matchday squad, unless they suddenly decide to go 6-2 split, which they've never done, really. Yeah. Who's that person?
Oh, this is what I find. Are you talking about now on the lesser games? I don't mean that disrespectfully.
No. South Africa, France, New Zealand.
So you're kind of looking at a bit of versatility there. So if you're looking at, if I list them all out, Stockdale, Lowe, Earls,
Bundy,
Hansen, Nash, O'Brien. Okay. If you're starting Keane, because O'Brien can play. He can play 13. He can play both wings. He can play 15. I think he gets the nod there for his versatility.
And does he get the nod over somebody like Bundy?
Who?
Bundy Aki.
It depends what way they want to line it up. And all different will have a different way of doing this. Like, as in, you take a gamble, and you've seen before, someone drops into the wing that's not potentially a winger. Like, they're saying that Ringrose had ran the wing lines and done defence and training and can hop in there. Like, it depends. I would probably put O'Brien in for his versatility, but that's just my preference.
And is there any
because you're covering three positions there, and he's played them well as well. Like, he's come in there playing 13 and played very well with very little preparation, and he's very used to, he's always plays the wing, and he's able to play 15. That'd be, other people would do it differently, but I think he's the versatile 23 man that you need.
One last thing, there's just news breaking this morning that Munster are going to play the Crusaders in a one-off game in February 2024. So they'll obviously, it's February the 3rd, so they won't have the Ireland players, I suspect, unless the Ireland players are released, because it's the week before, am I right? The week before the Six Nations starts. But they've announced a one-off against the Super Rugby champions, the Crusaders, who are going to have Rob Penny as coach. I mean, people have been talking about this for ages, where you could play the European Cup champions, but this is a great idea, isn't it?
Yeah, it's a great idea. And if you watch Super Rugby, it's so fast, it's so different at times in this Northern Hemisphere game that we play. So I just love to see how that turns out, and it's obviously going to be exciting. So yeah, I think that's, hopefully it'll kind of drive more of that. Like, I hope it's not just a once off. Like, you hope it'll maybe go somewhere.
Yeah. It doesn't say where the game is going to be. I wonder, is there a chance for them to stick it in Park at Kyiv? But we'll see. Alison, good stuff. That was brilliant. Thanks a million.
No bother, guys. Have a great day. Bye bye.
That's Alison Miller giving us the back three depth chart as it stands at the moment. I don't think anybody could disagree with any of that.
No, then you have, like, beyond that, obviously there's names like Balakoon and Larmer and Conway, like, but like the list in that area is so deep, hence the depth chart. But it's one of those positions where the starting three seem fairly well set and obvious. It's just that, if someone gets injured, who you're bringing in. But yeah, the options there are pretty tasty, it has to be said.
Daly was unreal from Munster this year, says Peter M. Very unlucky not to be on the plane. It's Bundy Aki. It's always Aki unless a centre is injured, says Pascal Jacob. And then people are giving out the Ireland jerseys. Haven't seen it. Is there a special World Cup jersey, the rugby one?
The rugby. Apparently, there was a fashion show on at the weekend. Don't ask me how I know this, and I can't remember where it was.
Willie Anderson's son.
That was the one.
Yeah.
Is that the jersey?
No, that's just an Ireland jersey.
Right, but it looked.
He's a designer.
Right. Okay. So he's designed his own.
That was his collection.
Okay. Right.
And so to pay testimony to his dad, he wore the jersey. He looked a little bit sheepish when he was. Did you see the video?
Yeah.
An incredible story, like world class designer. We'll talk a bit more about that as the days and weeks ahead. In the meantime, a reminder, Braeburn Coffee is the official coffee partner of Off the Ball. Braeburn is coming to an Applegreen store near you. New Braeburn locations pop up every month. Visit applegreenstores.com/Braeburn to find your nearest Braeburn coffee experience. And tell them we sent you. John Duggan, first time this week.
Ger and Shane, how are we doing?
First time last time.
Yes.
How are you?
Great, yourselves?
Good.
And
I'm giddy because today's my last day until I go on holidays. So
are you going anywhere nice?
I'm going to France.
Oh,
cheese and wine.
You getting the boat?
Not getting the boat. Left it far too late to get the boat. I wish we were getting the boat, but we're not.
Why do you like the boat? I
love the boat.
You see, going to a football match in England, I love the boat over, but it's the boat home that.
Oh, the boat home for football is the grimace.
There's nothing worse in life than coming home in the boat after a football match when you've had a few pints the night before.
Is it La Rochelle, Ger?
It actually is, yeah.
Oh, brilliant.
It is, yeah.
No barrage for all the coffee spots and bars and all the rest.
Sounds amazing.
Look,
well deserved.
Everybody needs a break.
It's like Christy Moore said, yeah.
Especially the viewers and listeners to this show, they definitely need a break.
Climb a mountain or jump on a lake in La Rochelle.
We'll have no Gilroy, no party now in the comments.
Yeah.
All next week and the week after.
Yeah.
That's what we have to put up with.
I have many burner accounts, turns out.
I don't.
Thanks, man.
And so what's going on with the under-20 game, 10 o'clock Irish time, Ireland versus Australia at the under-20 championship. So the draw against England means we have no room for error now, with 12 teams being reduced to 4 for the semi-finals. Hugh Cooney suspended, Charlie Irvin, Brian Gleeson, Ronald Fox all coming into the pack, James Nicholson coming in behind the scrum. So that's what we're going to be looking at this morning. England playing Fiji later on in the group. We have Josh McGee and Paul Reynolds playing for badminton medals at the European Games today. They go up against the Danish tandem of Anders Rasmussen and Kim Astrup in Krakow in the quarterfinals. Patrick Harrington defending his US Seniors Open title in Wisconsin later. Darren Clark also in the field. Tom McKibben and John Murphy in the field for the British Masters. The Ashes, England poor yesterday on the field. Australia got 339 for 5, and they resume at that point this morning with Steve Smith not 85 not out at Lords in the second test. Remember, Australia won the first test. We know that Vera Pauw announced her squad. We know that Kelly Harrington, Michaela Walsh and Dean Clancy have reached the Olympic Games in boxing. And then transfer wise, we had James Maddison go to Spurs yesterday, and then last night Kai Havertz signing for Arsenal for a 5-year deal, and Declan Rice going to Arsenal. So Arsenal spending £170 million on Rice and Havertz in the last 24 hours, which is a significant statement of intent.
Yeah, it is a statement of intent. What did they intend?
To certainly be at least as good as they were last season, because last season I think was the surprise season for a lot of people when they might not have seen Arsenal go so high. So obviously Arsenal feel that they need to build on that momentum, have an upgrade in midfield over the likes of Partey, who finished the season poorly, and Xhaka, with Declan Rice coming in there. and to have Havertz, who does need to improve his scoring rate, has scored less than 10 goals in his last 2 seasons at Chelsea. Now, we know that Chelsea has not been the best run club from a footballing perspective, but he just needs to score more goals. He's more of a player for moments, but maybe he might play a bit more deep in the Arsenal team. But also they kept Saliba, who was rumoured to go to PSG. So, look, they're showing him a lot of ambition, and more ambition than Tottenham.
Are they getting good value?
West Ham are. Like, when you think, like, is Declan Rice worth more than Harry Kane?
No.
Like, Harry Kane, Bayern Munich are bid 60 million for Harry Kane, which was rejected. But if they bid 80, that could be enough to get Harry Kane through.
It is rumoured that they've come back with a second bid at 80.
Yeah.
Because I was listening to Martin Lipton talk to you guys yesterday, and he was like, "Oh, they're not going to bid 100 if they start with 60." He's like, I mean, maybe other countries have a culture of like trying to get value, you know, as opposed to. Like I do wonder if Man City had any interest in signing Declan Rice now.
I've been wondering the same.
Well, I don't know why did they sign Kovacic if they needed to get Rice? They don't need to get Kovacic and Rice.
Or they just wrapping up the price for Arsenal and then pull away.
Yeah, and going, you've just wasted 20 million quid.
Yeah, because it is opportunity cost. You know, Arsenal are also interested in the 19 or 20-year-old midfielder from Southampton. His name momentarily escapes me, but maybe now they can't sign him. You know, because they've had to go the extra 15-20 million on Declan Rice, and financial fair play will kick in to a point where they're like, oh, actually we're right up against the limit of what we can and can't do here.
It is a bit. I want that suit. I want it. Nobody else is having it. I want the suit, so I'll pay over the odds for the suit.
Suit looks good on you though.
It does. In Louis Copeland's. Need to get back there.
You're getting compliments as well about your hair, John, this morning. Someone says, JD, what's up with the hair? And someone says that's the Don Duggan hairstyle. Someone says DJ Mike Anderson. I noticed Ger had the championship/holiday haircut.
Oh yeah, got to make sure there's no tan lines.
La Rochelle haircut, yeah.
Tan responsibly.
Yeah. So
the hair has to be cut. I have to go down to the bit of gel man today.
Bit of gel.
As we always say that there's only one thing said at the end. It's complete silence, and then there's a bit of gel at the end.
I go for the powder. Controversial.
Powder.
You're asked gel or wax, and I say powder. Keeps it in hold.
Is that a Monin thing or something?
No, I don't know.
It's the.
I think if you've thinning hair, it's probably the one that probably.
Have you got thinning hair?
Of course I do. Yeah. I think.
How do you feel about that?
My dad's had thinning hair though since he was my age, and he's still going. So.
He still got hair.
You hold on to the hope. You hold on to the hope.
Right. Okay.
So no trips to Turkey, but just yet.
But remember, you're the fittest guy and off the ball. You know, you won all the whoop stuff. So
well, there you go.
You have that in your arsenal.
Can't win it all.
It is interesting. You're walking around Istanbul and there's just loads of people
with white teeth and.
No, well, obviously, I mean, it's less obvious the teeth, but the hair is totally obvious because there's a shaved head and there's the human marker around you. Like
yes,
I was getting my elbow transplant. You can't really see that in the video there. The human marker on their heads, and you're like. All right.
I was chatting to someone recently. This was news to me, but who came back from Istanbul. So it's full of obviously the lads who've come back for the hair transplants and the teeth transplants. But you can get your rear end implanted as well, and it requires you to not sit down.
Where's this going?
For weeks. I think it's 6 weeks. Where you can't actually sit down.
You're like a jockey.
Basically, I don't know how you manage life in that sense, but apparently that's a thing. I only learned about it recently.
Yeah. Oh, I mean, it's obviously a thing.
It's obviously a thing, but I didn't realise the impact it would have. Yeah, but I didn't realise the impact it would have in your life for weeks thereafter.
How do you get home? You can't stand up on the plane.
Yeah.
Excuse me, sir, you have to sit down. I'm sorry. I have a letter from like arsefillerclinic.com that says I can't, and you have to
squat.
Squat, maybe. Yeah. I don't know how that works. Yeah, but. I don't know how we got here either, but
yeah, you took us here.
I took us here.
Yeah, you'll have to take us back.
Any other stories?
We're looking forward to the quarterfinals. I've now no longer grumpy about the All-Ireland Football Championship, given the quality that's on show this weekend.
Ah, good. It's John Duggan time of the year. Quarterfinals onwards.
Yeah, the circuit. I feel Cork I tell you, Cork are the most impressive team in a way, because I think they've the team that's done the best in terms of punching above
their power rankings.
Yes, and their match against Derry will be fascinating. And Dublin Mayo, look, Dublin don't have that many miles on the clock, but you have to say Dublin and Mayo, both counties not as good as they were. How much will the momentum of Mayo versus the break of Dublin kind of see itself out? Fascinating to see. I remember when I listened to Micheál Marhertig when I was young, the wind was always such a huge thing in Gaelic games, and then it kind of went out of the conversation. And then you saw back at Salt Hill last weekend that the wind was so crucial.
And Ballyofey as well, it was just...
Kerry Tyrone, and what kind of Tyrone are we going to see? Because they're so enigmatic. Like John Hesling gets the point and they're out of the championship, and now they're back in a game against Kerry, who won't be lacking motivation after what happened a couple of years ago. And the other one then, Armagh Monaghan. So how are you feeling about it?
Nervous. Yeah, because you're
probably the best draw you could have got.
It is, of course. Yeah, the other alternatives are Dublin and Kerry. But either way, the last four are going to be pretty interesting, because then the winner of Derry Cork and the winner of Armagh Monaghan, the winner of Armagh Monaghan will sort of be punching to get to the semi-finals. But
everybody's going to feel good about themselves. If you win this game this weekend, you're going to feel slightly impenetrable after it. John, good stuff.
All right, lads, have a great holiday, Ger.
Thanks a million. See you on the other side. More from John, of course, on Saturday afternoon on Off the Ball on News Talk. Some highlights on the Off the Ball podcast network for you today. Rugby Daily with Richie, Keith Higgins talking about Mayo Dublin at the weekend, and Paul Rouse with Joe last night. We'll play you out with that, our portion of it, in just a little while. After the break, delighted to say Roscommon manager Davy Burke is going to join us in studio. First, a bit more from Ruth Fahey, this time on the overall feeling of the Irish players after the World Cup announcement.
Yeah, I think you've captured it really well there in terms of explaining the tone of the announcement. I was so excited to wake up this morning. Obviously, we're 7 hours behind here, so the news had already broken. Went straight for a cup of coffee and opened up the media, and I was expecting celebration, jubilation. I suppose I hadn't thought deeper about those handful of players that were going to get the most heartbreaking news that they're ever going to receive in their career. Names are jumping out at me: Jamie Finn, Leon Kiernan, Megan Campbell. Like, these are players that have not only featured heavily in massive moments in the history of Irish women's football, but they've dedicated their entire lives to probably this day. And I don't want to make it worse or add to the sense of grief here, but today is probably about those players, and we'll move on from this as the days continue and Ireland play France, and we'll look forward. And once the World Cup actually kicks off, in Australia, this will be forgotten. But I think it's important to talk about these players, the commitment and sacrifice they've made, and acknowledge the disappointment and that they're very deserving to be there. And for the reasons Vera Pauw has outlined, some are technical, some are fitness or otherwise. She knows best. She's in the position. She's seen the players over the last number of days, weeks and months. And, the hardest day of her career, she's also said. And as you mentioned, Joe, she was emotional in that interview, and rightly so, I'd say.
You're listening
to OTB AM.
3, 2, 1, go.
Whether you're a Drive to Survive fan or a Grand Prix expert, now you can stay up to date with the world of F1. The F1 Pod on Off the Ball with Chicago Town Pizza, the ultimate podcast for F1 fans. The F1 Pod will keep you on the edge of your seat. For the best insight and analysis, subscribe to the Off the Ball Daily podcast feed wherever you get your podcasts. The F1 Pod on Off the Ball with Chicago Town Pizza. Formula One? Yeah, we go to town on it.
OTB AM with Gillette Labs. Get the ultimate shave or your money back. Neon Night Edition available now.
It's 9:01. I'm delighted to say Davy Burke, the Roscommon manager, is with us, but I'm also sorry to say Davy Burke, the Roscommon manager, is with us, because if you weren't, you'd be preparing for a big game this weekend. How are you doing?
All right, lads. I wouldn't say the mist is fully gone just yet, but disappointed, to be honest with you.
Yeah. Have you watched the game back?
I haven't, would you believe? Can't bring myself to win. I don't know how we lost the game, so I can't bring myself to watch it yet. I'd say this weekend I'll get around to it, I'd say.
Yeah. So your thoughts aren't fully formed then on what happened?
Oh, they're fairly clear, I'd say. No. Yeah, look, I have to watch it back to review to get into the real detail of it, yeah, but oh God, we were in complete and utter control for 34 minutes the first half, 7 points to 3 up. Downey Smith got injured and he was playing his best game all year for us, and it just seemed to be a turning point. Then we went in 7-6. We got really rattled them for 5 minutes by Cork. In fairness to them, they pushed up in our kick out and really rattled us. Went in 7-6. We needed half time after being in complete control, which was crazy really, and then came out in the first 10 minutes of the second half again, and Cork really rattled us again in the first 10 minutes. So but we showed great resolve, got back into it and everything else, but it was that 15-minute period where really we just lost control of the game for some reason.
Is that just does it happen in games against teams who are as good as Cork, and basically all the teams are at such a similar level at the moment that it felt like this is going to be one of those years where somebody can actually just catapult from that tier up to actually winning it.
Yeah, it did feel like that. Yeah, it did feel that, and I still think that Cork team could do it. They could absolutely do it. Like Monaghan are there, Armagh are there, kind of all in that bracket. I would have thought, kind of like the second tier, whatever you want to call it. So yeah, I absolutely. Well, one of them at least is going to be in a semi-final at least. So yeah, no, there's definitely an opportunity this year. I think we're all in one big heap, Ger, to be honest with you. I think no one really knows.
And is that why you're as sick as you are? Because
opportunity missed, isn't it? Absolutely opportunity. How many more chances? Are these Roscommon lads going to get? Am I going to get to being all in quarterfinals, etc.? So yeah, it's sickening. Yeah, absolutely sickening.
Not to remind you of the obviously the last couple of minutes, tough to think back to them, but I think there's a moment certainly on the TV where I think it's maybe Eddie Lohan has the three fingers up.
I put two back to him.
Two back to him. But I think he's saying, so there's obviously 3 minutes of the 4 injury time left, and from what I gather is he's saying there's 3 minutes to hold on to the ball here and get a pop shot off at the end. That was my take on it. I don't think he's telling the players how many minutes are left. I think he's saying here's how many minutes you need to hold on to the ball, and literally seconds later, of course, that Conor Daly, whatever happens.
Yeah, so when Eddie, you're right. But it was about 71-50 when Eddie put the 3 fingers up to me, and I turned around and if you'll watch it back, I put 2 fingers back up to him, and said,
I thought you meant you're putting 2 other fingers up to him.
No. Me and Eddie are tight now. But so there was 2 minutes left. Literally the clock had just went to 72 at that stage, and before I turned around, the whistle was blown for Conor Daly for travelling or throwing the ball in the air or whatever the infringement was. But we were absolutely trying to hold the ball for at least another minute, get it into the 73rd minute or so, work a scoring opportunity to kill the clock, essentially, not give Cork an opportunity. That was exactly what we were trying to do. And we had scored from 10 of them setups. We scored 8 times against Cork, and we would have doing it all day for fun, and you'd back us every other day to do it again. And just forward looking, Conor Daly's one of our most comfortable ball players. So look, how do you legislate for these things?
Do you know what happened? Do you know what the infringement was?
I'm led to believe my chairman went and spoke to the ref after the game. I think he done him for throwing the ball. So if you watch it back, I think he kind of popped the ball upwards. So if you're hopping, he took 2 solos in the before, and if you're hopping the ball, I think you have to be downwards. Yeah. Whereas I think Conor just got caught in 2 minds and popped the ball up. Now it did hit the ground. I'd say it's very grey, lads. I'd say it's extremely grey. And sitting here in not in great form, it doesn't help the greyness. But it's very grey. And referee was a good bit away from it and everything else too. But your luck.
Yeah. Can we talk to you about the keeping the ball and getting the shot off at the end? Because you became something of a lightning rod for the state of the nation and the state of the game after the 6 minutes.
Yeah, against Dublin, yeah.
How conscious were you first off of the debate, and then secondly I want to talk to you about how you developed that, because it's incredible to be able to do it. But go on, the debate afterwards, did you pay any attention to it at the time?
Oh, we'd good crack about the debate afterwards, to be honest with you, Ger. I thought it was very, very funny. I thought there was a complete overreaction to it. If we all went out and seen Loud to give an exhibition on what not to do against Dublin in Leinster final, we were sitting there preparing for Dublin in 2 weeks' time, and you kick 50-50s into Dublin all day long, they'll destroy you. They'll absolutely destroy you. So we made a conscious decision, well, we're not going to give them the ball back too often, and when we do, we're going to make sure it goes dead. So we worked on a plan to hold the ball. Had we worked on to hold it for 6 minutes? No. But if Dublin don't want to come to the party, well, what are we going to do? It's always up to the underdog to go give them the ball to make these players look like brilliant footballers. Why can't they come and chase us? And they didn't want to do it, so we held the ball, and we ended up kicking a brilliant score with Kieran Murtagh, who was a brilliant footballer. So if you give Niall Daly time on the ball, he ain't giving it away. You give David Murray, you have brilliant footballers. We've some serious brains across our middle 8, now it didn't work in the 72nd minute against Cork, but still we have some brilliant footballers there. So Dublin didn't want to come to the party and didn't want to come out and press us, so what were we going to do? Kick the ball into them?
Well, I do often wonder about this, because it felt to me like there was kind of an upstart. Who do these uppity Roscommon folk think they are, coming here and doing this? This isn't in the spirit of the game. Exactly. Yeah. This is what Donegal did, and they won All Ireland for it, and everybody hates them, And respectively. And I look, as a Kildare supporter all the years, it's like, should we not be doing a bit of this?
ridiculous.
Absolutely, and I did see the following again. Lots of teams tried to imitate it, Ger, and they kept the ball away too easy and kept getting hurt on it.
Because you can't just decide that you're going to do it. You have to be working on this from last November.
And you need footballers. You need serious footballers. Like where we might, if we lack pace, we have serious ballers. You know, that kind of way. So there's a trade-off there. So you have to be working on it. It's a plan, and you have to have serious discipline. And sometimes a gap, you might think the gap is on, but you actually don't take the gap. You might probe to come back out of the gap because you know you're running into a trap or whatever it is. And so the reaction was ridiculous. It was a real case of that. Who are these upstarts? Young fella managing them, coming up from Roscommon. We'll show them kind of thing. You know, like it was wrong, really, to be honest. Loaded nothing about no. It didn't take an ounce out of us. And to be honest with you.
You've obviously done the maths on it, as in, because even the Monaghan-Kildare match last weekend, I think Monaghan had the ball at one stage for 3 minutes, lose it, Kildare score, but then at the end they obviously get the winner from a period of possession just before the game is blown up. So you've obviously done the maths and realised this is something that pays off more often than it doesn't.
Yeah, absolutely, it does. And look, we adjust week to week. You see against Sligo, we didn't hold the ball, we went out and kicked the ball all day to go and hurt the Division 4 team. You know, as simple as that. So we won the game by 10 points, kicking 121, I think 117 from play. So, you know, each week you have to adjust, lads, you know, simple as that. So we've done the maths on it. If you give top teams, now you're talking the Dublins, the Kerrys, you give them boys the ball, they're going to hurt you. Simple as that. And we're watching week after week. Look at Kerry done the Loud last week, like look at Dublin done the Loud. Like what do people want? We're trying to make the game more competitive, we're trying to make the game more equal, and we need to be tactically innovative to do that, and you know, and that's my job, is to make my team as competitive as I possibly could.
How hard was it to get the team to the level where so you say they're ballers, but obviously that requires intense work, and they have to trust that the work is beneficial, and they obviously did, because the fruits are in that point. And you know, they did loads against Cork, you know, and it nearly won the game against Cork, and now you wouldn't be here today. But anyway, like, how much work is that? What's your training like that allows the team the confidence to be able to do that under that environment and that pressure?
It's like, if you're coaching anything, Ger, it's just repetition. You must go and do it and keep doing it, and you can put variety in it to keep lads fresh, but ultimately, lads, we want to do this, we're practicing this, so let's do this in training. And you put 50 men behind the ball or whatever you need to do, and how do we break it down, and how are we going to probe, and how are we going to find the gaps, and when are we going to know it's a trap, and when are we going to identify that, and different things like that, you know, and when are we going to know it's time to go, you know, that kind of way. So you have to just repeat it, and that's the only way. And you get buy-in when they have a fair idea, you have an idea what you're talking about, you know, that kind of way. I think they've had plenty of good managers, club level, poor managers, etc. So I think they have a fair idea early doors whether they're getting to get on board with you or not.
And did you have to talk to them about that when you come in and said this is so? And here's the thing, I don't want to pigeonhole you and say you made the point that you don't just play this way. You've got to play loads of different ways depending on the opposition. But when we're in the big games against the top tier teams, we actually have the footballers who are going to be able to trust yourself to get the ball. Like Xavi, you're going to get the ball, somebody's going to be up your hole, but you're going to be able to keep control of it because we trust you as a footballer. You have to have that conversation with them to say this is their plan, or do you just kind of let it evolve over a period of time?
It evolves over a period of time, and watching video analysis is key, because you can look at what other teams are doing well, look at what other teams are doing poorly, more so against top teams, and they just keep giving them oxygen and keep giving them life all the time, and you just wonder why lads get demoralised, because they just have chasing shadows the whole time. And you can make a really good footballer look very average, but just not keeping the ball away from him, you know, that kind of way. And ultimately, as I said to you, they didn't want to come to the party, so what were we going to do, you know, that kind of way. What were we going to do? Like, I was very, you know, we were in complete and utter control again, but we were complete and utter control last Saturday, and we didn't see it out. Complete and utter control against Dublin, and we didn't see it out. So while it's fine, it works to a point, Ger. It's you know, it's not the answer, like, you know.
Did you feel like the narrative was because it was a Roscommon, say for example, you know, if it was one of those tier teams like you say, Armagh, Monaghan, Cork, whoever, that did this, that they get criticised, but if it's a Dublin or Kerry that do this, they're geniuses.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, people, the upstart, you know, it's the upstart. It's like if you go to the door of the nightclub and the bouncer says to you, regulars only, and it's my first time here, lads, how do I become a regular if you don't let me in? You know, that kind of way. So people don't, how much change do people really want, Shane, in life, you know, that kind of way.
When you said there that it's not the answer because we couldn't see it out against those two teams, what is the answer then? Is it, what do you think, there has to be an evolution then?
An evolution and a bit more experience of the plan, or, you know, that version of our plan, you know. We need more work on it. Ultimately, we're not in an All-Ireland quarter final because we gave the ball away in 72nd minute with under no pressure, you know. No, there's plenty more of it too, but that's obviously one part of it. So it's clearly not rehearsed well enough yet, you know, that kind of way.
Can you train that squeaky bum time? You know, I guess the last couple of minutes of a game, obviously against Kildare as well, only for Feely's unbelievable high mark catch and kick. That game goes a different way as well potentially. But those last few minutes, can you train that sort of pressure where you're dealing with 72nd minute of a game and trying to get over the line?
Well, it's all scenario based. We would train that every day, and we'd put them in a scenario. Right, lads, we're 2 points down. There's 69 minutes in the clock. We're playing 4 minutes over, and go and dig it out. And we do that time and time again. So you can try it. Obviously, you're trying to imitate it. Have you the depth of squad to do it? You know, people are going on about Dublin and their AVBs aren't as strong anymore. So, you know, have we the depth of squad to do it? I'm not sure. We've a very, very strong squad, but have we 30 first choice players? Probably not. You know, that kind of way. So it's difficult to train it, but you ultimately about putting them in the scenarios and going after it every night. And I do think it's getting there. But I haven't actually, just to roll back on what I said there, if we had just got the job done against Dublin, not just got the job, but we should have got the job done against Dublin. We didn't. The Kildare game would have been irrelevant because it would have been a dead rubber. You know, that kind of would have been a dead rubber. So we would have topped the group regardless of the outcome of that game. And like that was the one game that we didn't hit anywhere near our standards. We weren't good enough whatsoever. We won 3 of 26 kickouts. Like, sure, where are you going at that level? Like, you know, if you don't cut off some sort of a platform of your opposition, you know, you're just not going to be competitive. And I know we kept them to a point, but to be honest with you, if Kildare didn't get 2 black cards, I think the game was long gone. You know, long gone. So you go out 5%, 10% off in this game, you're in serious trouble.
What's your biggest learning then from this year as an educative manager at this level with a team who, you know, I don't know if everybody felt like they were competitors, but then with the league, the way the league went and the quality of forward play that we were seeing from your forwards, it was like, so what's your biggest learning as a manager at this level now?
I think we need to strike our balance probably for next year a bit better, in that I think our defence all year held up very, very strongly. I think we've one of the best defences in the country. Probably Galway and ourselves were probably the two that were averaging out roughly the best around, and then ultimately I think our attack play suffered, and maybe I was the focus when I came in to sort out the defence, because in Roscommon defence hadn't been brilliant over the years, and you think they were the New Orleans Saints of the GAA. They'd want to outscore everybody, so we had to get the balance right. And maybe did we tip the balance too far? I'm not sure. But yeah, we definitely need to get the balance right on that front. But I came in here last November and I said it's one of the most exciting jobs. I still absolutely hold that strong. We need to get more consistency. Now we've gone from being, you know, up and down to a very consistent team, but still, you know, the Kildare game we weren't consistent. Monaghan in the league we were very poor, and then you know, for long periods last weekend we were decent. So we need to do away with these up and down performances. But we are getting there. There's absolutely no doubt we're getting there, and ultimately you have to be very, very consistent, Joe.
Must be happy with the way in which that league campaign started. You mentioned the Monaghan game, but those 3 games before that, you know, Tyrone, Galway, Armagh, the performances were just brilliant. And at that point you're thinking, well, the sky's the limit here with this team. Yeah,
we all were, and then we turned up to Clonus and got a good tanking off your boys, Shane. So we were very much the bubble was popped very quickly. But again, it's like anything, you go probably a bit ahead of themselves, you know, 3 wins in the bounce Division 1, thinking, you know, and it's probably a subconscious thing really, like, you know, but and then get brought down to earth fairly handy. But but the world is like, they're so exciting, this bunch, and they're sponges. They will do anything for you, and they listen to everything. And like you were saying, Ger, how does it take to get them on board? They've all had the best. They've all had not great fellas. They know when, right, I'm heading for 29 now. I've got 2-3 good years left to me at inter-county level. I like what I'm hearing here. Let's go and do this. You know, that kind of way, where people aren't stupid anymore. You know, that kind of.
Can I ask you about Tony Smith? I didn't realise he was quite the footballer he is. I don't know, is there something different this year? Maybe I've seen more of him because the way the championship is structured is actually better to allow us to see. But the equaliser that he kicked against Kildare, like, if you'd drawn that game, I just thought it was incredible.
Enda Smith. Enda. Oh, Jesus, lads, he is a serious footballer. As good as I've ever worked with, and as good as I ever will work with, he's as good as there is in Ireland. There's absolutely no doubt about it. He's a phenomenal talent. His speed, his pace, his strength, his leadership, left and right foot. Jeez, I'd say he could have been a professional soccer player. I think that was, you know, this fella has it all. And what a fella as well. Brilliant fella. Never misses a minute training. Real leader in the squad. Was captain there for 2 years previously. Top class.
Did you know that there was that level of talent that you were going to be able to unlock in a way around a structure that was going to give them the freedom to progress.
In Enda or in whole lot?
In Roscommon when you were going.
Yeah. Well, as I said before I even met any of them, I was sitting in the studio and I said how exciting it was. So yeah, absolutely. And there's a lot of teams being held back by lack of structure and lack of balance and lack of setup and maybe tactical nous and different things. So absolutely, these guys were going to be no different. And then the young bucks and Ben O'Carroll and Dara Craig and these lads and Conor Carroll and Dylan Rowan and Keith Doyle, they're all smashing young fellas coming through now as well, who've given the older bucks the little rattle that they needed. They needed to be shaken up. It was the same 17 who were going to play every week, and that was it. So now there's 24 who are going to play every week, and it's either come to the party or don't, lads. And if you don't come to the party, you don't play. And they all know that, and that's probably why they had a decent year. But decent.
Yeah.
It's probably been highlighted too, as I think you said when you were in November as well. As you say, it was very early days, but you pulled up to a petrol station or filling station somewhere in Roscommon and someone was banging on your window wanting to talk about football straight away. It's obviously a county, I live with a Roscommon man as well, so I know how feverish they are about football. Has that been transpired across the year? Because clearly it's a county that just lives and breathes it.
Oh yeah, they've really taken me back. They've really shook me this year. I've never experienced any level of enthusiasm or support like it. They were phenomenal and still are to this day phenomenal people. The support are crazy about football, and that is sort of the players, and as simple as that. So is the county board. The county board are a special bunch of people. They're literally a bunch of supporters. That's what they are. They are brilliant. I pick up the phone to them and be like friends with the chairman, it's just the relationship, I'd say, is very unique relationship. They're really, and I'm very conscious of letting the players know this, in that what they have, the setup they have and we have, is not the setup that's in every county in the country, and I'm making sure them players realise that, because players can be very quick to point fingers and give out about A, B, C and D, but when something's going well, I'm very quick to let them know too.
So it sounds like you're there for the long haul.
Well, I'm there for now anyway, yes. So I'll certainly be in pre-season in a few months' time, Ger. So, and as I said, I'm enjoying it. So,
I suppose it feels like you found a home for now. Because sometimes you go to a job and you have a bit of success straight away, and it's like you don't have to say the things you've just said. For example, you could come in and just talk about the season was gone, and then it doesn't sound like you're just there because that was the job, that was the opportunity, and you're just doing it at the moment. It feels like you've found a kindred spirits.
I'm an honest fella though too, Ger. I probably get myself into trouble with my honesty sometimes, so that's probably why you boys like me. So I don't have to say it, but I believe it, and I firmly believe that these are brilliant people to work with, and there's three parties: the management, the county board and the players, and I think three of us getting on very well. So absolutely, why would you go anywhere else and change that unnecessarily, that kind of way. So absolutely, I'm very happy what I'm doing for now.
It's also it's like the Formula 1 example, where there are only literally 20 seats on the grid, so it's such a unique position. There are only 8 managerial positions in Division 1 every year, and like I think you had said that in November as well, you wanted a top tier job, and just to be in one of those positions in Roscommon again in Division 1 next year, by the way, with Dublin and Derry coming back up, so it's going to be feverish next year, but to have one of those jobs must be personally so satisfying.
Well, it is. Ultimately, you want to see, are you good enough? Are you up to it? And that's simple as it. And I don't know yet. We didn't make it on quarter final. Like Division 1 is great, but we weren't good enough to make a quarter final. So I'm very much still road testing myself here to find out, am I good enough, and are my players good enough, and are we doing the right things? And certainly we're making ground. I've no doubt about it, making ground. But it's still a huge disappointment this weekend.
There's all the talk about the provincial championships, and when you think back to that win over Mayo in Castlebar in the rain, was the focus, and will the focus next year be on winning a Connacht title, or is it completely irrelevant, where you're just concentrating essentially on staying in Division 1, getting to as far as you can in the All-Ireland Series, or have the provinces taken a bit of a backseat?
I think I would have said the province had taken a backseat a month ago or 6 weeks ago, but I think whoever comes out this year of the All-Ireland Series, everyone will try copy that template, I think, because it's very, very difficult. None of us knew how to periodise this year or what to do, because it's the first year of it. So there's not anyone who comes on and tells you they're an expert in Division 1 A, B and C. I don't believe it whatsoever, because so every game in Division 1 is absolute chaos. It's full on, full tilt. You can't take your foot off the gas, so you must go after every one of them. And then you go into your Connacht Championship, and we just stacked on the one side of the draw this year, and go out, just beat Mayo there, and then just beat Galway, and best of luck, Jesus Christ. You know what I mean? We got fairly hard done by this year in that regard, but look, it is what it is. So, and you have to go in and play Dublin your first group game in Croke Park, but don't get me wrong, that's why I'm here. That's what I want to do. We want these challenges, you know. So I can't answer next year. I need to, when this year's over, sit down and literally go through it line for line. Okay, Kerry done this, Dublin done this, Roscommon done this, Cork done this. What is the answer that I think is the best version for next year? Meet my S&C coach and go, right, let's plan our load here.
Because is there a significant difference in how much load you would have had, say for example, you knew that you were going to have Mayo's season where you were going to have one game in Connacht, irrespective of the result. You were going to have one game and then you're going to have a period of time. Is there a significant difference between getting the team ready for that one-off and then having the taper down and the taper back up to get ready for a group stage? Is it huge?
It's huge. Is it? It's huge. Yeah, it's a significant difference because when you're going week to week, your level of preparation is zero. Really, you're just recovery week to week. But when you've got one target, which we had this year, and maybe it was right, maybe it was wrong. Did it cost us in the long run? I don't know. I have to look back at all this type of stuff. You know, we ultimately, the lads we knew with Easter Sunday, we knew we were going to McHale Park, and the lads fancied a right good cut off it, you know, that kind of way, and ultimately we won the game. But did it cost us down the road? I don't know. I don't answer that. But we will dig in. We will find out if we.
Because there's no way Mayo didn't also have that circled and go, we're going to go for this too. Do you know,
with Kevin McStay, the helm.
The repercussions are that if you lose, you do actually then have this incredible soft landing with the pillow to go, we got 5 weeks here to prepare for the next thing.
Sometimes it can be too long. I'm not a big fan of 5 or 6 weeks to myself. 2 or 3 weeks would do me lovely now. Okay. And I think that's one thing that needs to maybe change with the new structure is.
We've 2 minutes left with you. I did want to ask you about Dublin Mayo and what you think is going to happen, because it's this kind of fascinating where we're not quite sure where the Dubs are. We don't know how they've been periodising. But what do you think? Where are they?
I think the Dubs come down to 2 lads this year, Owen Merchant and Jack McCaffrey, because without them they've struggled for pace big time, and when they struggle for pace they become less supreme than they are. So the 2 guys have struggled for form, they've struggled for fitness this year, they haven't played very much football. So if the 2 boys are on the field for 70 minutes against Mayo, I can see Dublin winning the game. If they're not, I can see Dublin struggling, because I think pace is something they're not blessed with at the minute, and when you take them 2 boys out, they're in big bother, I think. The only thing I will say is, everyone's talking about Mayo struggling against blanket defence, and they do. It's there. Dublin don't play that way. They don't play that way. They might set up like everyone else with 13-14 men behind the ball, but they want to come out and attack. And if they come out and attack that Mayo team, I think their athleticism, like we've seen in Killarney, could hurt that Dublin team.
Right. So if you're Desi, you're like, let's not try and be ourselves. Let's be something. Make it a 6-all game at half time, and then.
But that Dublin team won't do that. That's the problem, because you're asking me how do I sell a product to my players. He can't go into that dressing room and go say, we have to respect Mayo too much and go in and play a certain style of football that doesn't suit us to stop Mayo playing. He can't sell that to Brian Fenton. Not a danger can he do that. Okay. So they're going to go toe to toe, and they're either going to go, if they have their speedsters on the field, they win. If they're without even one of them, I can't see them winning.
All right, okay, that's interesting, because like, in fairness, if you are Fenton and McCarthy, you're like, lads, we've got 6 All-Irelands,
exactly,
or 8.
Yeah, let's go for it.
Yeah,
that kind of way. What
let's die with our boots on.
Yeah. Like, they're not probably feeling as bad as a few Rossies today, like, that kind of way, like.
Or the Kildare supporters.
Yeah, or the Kildare supporters.
Can I very briefly ask you about I mentioned the Kevin Feely attacking mark, and I guess that's how the attacking mark is supposed to be used, but it's not always used like that. Let's be honest. No. What are your thoughts on that as a rule?
It's a terrible rule, lads. We're rewarding fellas for 15-20 metre kick passes, sometimes less. They get blown for this terrible rule. Why are we rewarding top class inter-county footballers? In fairness to the Kevin Feely one, Daniel Flynn kicked the ball from outside the 45 and Feely was inside the 14 or wherever he was, somewhere around that. So that was a good overhead catch. I can understand if that was the rule we wanted to continue with, I'd be happy with that. A 30-40 metre kick pass and an overhead catch inside the 14 yard line, I could go with that now. I can work with that. These 15 yard dinks around blanket defences are rubbish, absolute rubbish. And why are we rewarding top class footballers to do that? And we're taking goal chances out of the game. I don't care what anyone says. Against Louth, I was sitting in the stand watching Dublin very, very closely, and Conor Callaghan twice had the opportunity to go by the full back. He didn't. He put the hand up and tapped the ball over the bar. Sure, that's sad, lads. We're here for competition. We're here for goals. We're here for excitement.
No, you're ruining the sport, not the mark.
It's not the mark. Yeah,
you didn't get the memo.
Yeah.
You're obviously not in the right WhatsApp groups. Yeah. Davey, good stuff. Thanks a million for joining us. Cheers, and congratulations. It was a good season, I think. Certainly very interesting to see what happens next year. Best of luck with it.
Thanks, Davey. Thanks.
Right, Colm is with us. Colm, good morning to you.
How are you? Declan Rice to Arsenal. I mean, usually I'd be kind of a bit sceptical of a £100 million price tag, but I think Arsenal have pulled off a serious coup here, because I think Rice is the best midfielder in the Premier League.
Stop.
It's unbelievable. He's unbelievable. And like, you see, you say stop to me, but I think the reason you say that
so
to me instinctively
overrated.
is because of the Ireland.
No, it's not.
I think it is.
He's super
I think it is
overrated.
personally. I think he absolutely has the ability to dominate games. I actually want more from him.
The best midfielder in the Premier League.
I would say on his day,
Kevin De Bruyne.
He's absolutely unbelievable in his position. Now, De Bruyne is a different story altogether going forward. I'm talking about a traditional, what I would say, a central midfield player who's kind of a little bit deeper. And for West Ham, he's almost been sitting in like a back three at times. But with this Arsenal side, like, it's a hell of an upgrade on Granit Xhaka.
I feel like because of
he is.
Oh yeah, definitely an upgrade in Xhaka.
He's a brilliant footballer, and we actually have only seen a little bit of what he can do.
He's not worth that price.
I think he is. I think in today's market, like, I was actually, just as Davy was slipping out there, I was looking at like other players who cost in and around that amount. You know, like Ousmane Dembele. Same price. I mean, you're immediately getting more for Declan Rice. Do you know what I mean?
It's Qatari money, though.
Jude Bellingham, similar price.
Dembele was Barcelona. Look,
from Borussia Dortmund to Barcelona, yeah.
I do think you can actually play Jude Bellingham and Rice together. Look, Rice is a good player.
I think he's brilliant.
We shall see. Like, this is the bit now where there are no excuses. It's not like, oh, I've got to cover the bad central defensive partnership, and my goalkeeper is a bit flaky, and my midfield partner is, I'm uncertain who it's going to be week to week, or he's actually playing as an 8 and I need another 6. I don't know. It's going to be very interesting to see. There are no more excuses. It's Champions League football, week in, week out, and massive pressure. So let's see if he can
Rice has no experience in that regard.
That's why I'm delighted to see it, and I can't wait to see. I mean, look, this is not a direct comparison, but Roy Keane didn't have European football experience too when he left Nottingham Forest to join Manchester United, but he made the step up. And this has got, like, the transfer fee is exorbitant, but we get used to £100 million transfers now. It was a big deal about a decade ago, not so much now after Neymar broke the seal in 2017.
You've compared him with Roy Keane there, which means that you think that he could have a similar level of influence on the Premier League that Keane had.
I don't think there'll ever be another Roy Keane, but yeah, I think he can have a serious influence.
I think we'll be looking back a year from now at Declan Rice's first season, and we'll say, he was a good signing, but it'll be very much
fine. I mean,
indifference. For that price tag, he needs to have an unbelievable season.
It might not be an instant hit, but that's fine. Like, I can see him staying at Arsenal long term.
It's not fine for 105.
But it is though. I mean, if he gets better season on season for 5 years, then it's absolutely worth it.
And I think you guys were saying, is he worth more than Harry Kane? But like, he absolutely is, because he's much younger. That's the thing. Like, you know, if you're signing Harry Kane, you're signing for 2 seasons. If you're signing Declan Rice, you are hoping that you get 7 years of him being your star midfielder, and that at some point in that 7 years you win a league, and so therefore it's like, oh, he was the centrepiece of our league winning team.
Yeah. People also assume that Roy Keane hit the ground running at Manchester United. He scored in his debut and they won a double in his first season. But Brian Robson pulled him aside one night and said, if you want to be a Manchester United midfielder long term, you're going to have to start getting much more involved in games. Because Keane was almost like a Frank Lampard type figure at Forest, where he was getting on the end of things a lot. And so he started to dominate the ball in possession. So he didn't fly to the traps at all. Like,
sorry, you're both making the assumption there that Declan Rice, they can pay this price tag because for 7 years, until he's 31, he's 24 now, Declan Rice can be that midfielder for Arsenal that anchors the midfield that wins trophies. There's an assumption there of two things. Assumption is that Arsenal will be winning loads of trophies in that time. Maybe he can help them do that. I don't think he's good enough to do that. And the other assumption is that Declan Rice would have the loyalty to stay at Arsenal for 7 years, and he hasn't exactly exhibited loyalty in his past.
Well, he stated his preference for staying in London. I mean, when a few days ago when Manchester City were in the race, it's well known that his preference was staying around. So I don't see any reason that he'd leave. Like, at the moment, Arsenal are the best London club, so unless Chelsea massively improve, he could go there, but that's about it really. Either way, he's probably going to stay in the Premier League. And I don't see any reason, from what I've seen of Declan Rice so far, in a very average West Ham side, like one that's struggling in relegation, that he still stands out as a brilliant footballer. And the only criticism I'd have of him is that he should do more. He should have more confidence in himself because of his ability. I've rarely seen a player with that physique have so much kind of technical ability on the ball as well, and has an ability to dominate midfield. And I think at Arsenal he has a much better opportunity to do that than he has at West Ham.
One thing I will say in a positive sense about him is that he is good in the big games. Like I remember the 2-2 draw where was it?
He could be better in the big games.
Yeah, he could be, but he's been man of the match in games at Old Trafford as well, I think. And
so you're saying that they're signing him for potential, and look, maybe that's how the game is at the moment. You do have to spend 100 million quid to sign players
signing him for now
who have a higher ceiling than they're currently showing, and I'm just not sure what the ceiling is. I think we might have seen it, like to the point, and somebody else is pointing it out, like he has played in Euros final, he has played in a World Cup, and some people watch the same game that I'm watching, and they're like, oh wow, that's incredible, look at it's a cross between Franz Beckenbauer and Lothar Matthäus. I'm like, is it?
The hype train is very British media hype train.
No, you don't even need to do like what's it? Phil Jones is compared with Duncan Edwards. Like there's loads of outrageous comparisons over the years. But Rice just captained West Ham to their first trophy in decades. He has the ability to be the standout player in the pitch. And I'm not saying that he's going to lead Arsenal to Premier League glory next season, or maybe even a trophy. But I do think he'll massively improve their midfield. And I'm really interested to know, like Ger said, there is no more excuses for him anymore. He's not hiding behind a poor side. He's in a team that's on the up with one of the best young managers around, and I'm fascinated to see how he gets on. And I think £100 million for a player that age on a contract that long could be very good value for money if you break it down season by season and his impact.
It's a lot of money for him, I think.
I think what they've done is they've put all their eggs in the basket of him and Kai Havertz, and I'm just not convinced that that's really brilliant business at the moment. Now, we can play this back at Christmas when Havertz has scored 15 goals and created, and Odegaard is in and out of the team because Havertz has taken his place, or him and Odegaard are running games behind Gabriel Jesus, and with Saka and Martinelli's not in the team. I'm not quite sure how they're all going to play, or if this maybe this is strength in depth, and everybody plays half an hour and the cavalry comes on, and the intensity with which they can press is higher than everybody else because they've got more forward players. Like most of the big clubs haven't quite used the 5 subs in a way that, so Pep frequently doesn't use any subs in the big games, and certainly as the season progressed last year when the treble was on the line, he had his first team and he didn't make any changes unless there were injuries, and that's kind of strange to me. I feel like there's massive value to be had in having world-class players who can come on and perform at the same level as the person that they've replaced for half an hour against tiring defences. And maybe that's what Mikel Arteta is doing here, and maybe there's some strategy to this that again our tiny brains and OTB AM can't see.
I think the strategy is really obvious in there. He's signing one of the best players in the league. So in midfield clearly, but what's the point of Havertz? Well, Havertz, we were even saying pre-show, when Chelsea signed him from Bayer Leverkusen in 2020, there was a lot of excitement around and envy by other fans that this is one of the most talented players around. And you look at the stats; they're pretty underwhelming for his time at Chelsea. He'll always have the cult hero status because of his winner in the Champions League final 2 years ago against Man City. But what do you thought? 19 goals and 7 assists in 91 Premier League games. It's all a bit meh.
So Jasmine Baba has been saying she's excited about this, and we might do a piece with her to explain exactly how he's going to fit and improve the team.
Yeah, he's a good player, but I've never really seen him be absolutely poor or anything, but he can be anonymous a bit. He can just get lost in it all. But maybe that's Chelsea.
So that's the bit where I think they've overspent on Declan Rice, the same that they've overspent on Havertz, and sometimes it feels like teams who are just on the verge make these big splashy moves to keep everybody happy, but there's a stink of desperation off it, I think, whereas actually the young player from AC Milan that Newcastle have signed,
Tonali,
is that not what Arsenal should be doing? Signing players at that level?
Or a Maddison for 40 million, which is far better value than
you could have
those.
You could have had them both, and Kai Havertz for the cost of Declan Rice.
Yeah,
and it's just that there's an opportunity cost of signing him, and I understand that you think he's going to be the dominant midfielder in the Premier League for the next couple of years. We'll see.
Well, I'm just thinking in my head here that the final third for Arsenal next season could be pretty frightening if everyone's in form. So a fit Gabriel Jesus up
Where
front.
Where are they playing?
Martinelli, Saka, Havertz. Odegaard drops deeper with Rice.
And that's the team, so it's one defender. One player.
You could have a deep lying, Odegaard in the style of Michael Carrick, a deep lying playmaker style. I could see that working against certain sides. Now, obviously, against the bigger teams away from home, you're going to have to change that up a bit. But that's potentially a team at the Emirates Stadium against a lot of Premier League opposition.
I'm looking forward to Rodri, De Bruyne, and Silva.
Oh, that won't be the team against Man City. That won't be the team against Man City. But against 3/4 of the Premier League opposition,
it's 4-0 after 15 minutes.
That'll be more than good enough to beat most sides. Then you change it up against Man City,
pushing Arteta
a lot deeper.
No problem. Who are you? You're the water boy.
We're not even talking about Emile Smith-Rowe and all of this. Look, the Arsenal squad is looking very good.
Okay,
very strong. No reason that they can't challenge
enough to win a league, though. No,
Harlem Globetrotters.
No reason that they can't win the league again. We didn't. Well, it's not my favourite transfer of the summer. Ogbene to Luton.
Oh yeah.
We didn't even touch on it yet. That's brilliant, because we were very worried about the lack of Premier League representation.
Well, the expectation was he'd go to a championship club or
excellent.
Maybe
when
abroad.
I saw it the other night, big smile on my face.
Yeah, I really hope he's going to play. I don't know enough about how Luton played last season or what position he might play for them. But if he's going to play week in, week out in the Premier League, that's a massive leap forward for us and for him. And I really hope he's making a fortune, because he totally deserves it. The circuitous route he was talking about, being 1 in 200,000 to make it the way he made it. And, you can see how we missed him in the games just gone. You can see that there's an energy that he brings. And anyway, yeah.
Look, Rotherham only just avoided. Well, they were was it 20th last season, or just above that. So we were still banging in the goals. Ogbene can score goals, and yet as we've seen with Ireland, he's such a good wide player as well. So exciting. That's one of the moves of the summer from an Irish perspective.
Definitely, and hopefully it's not finished. Just a few more to go, and we'd be like, okay, 6 or 7 players in the Premier League.
Yeah, possible. Collins goes to Brentford. Yeah.
Manchester United, David De Gea signed his contract thinking, okay, done deal, and they're like, oh, the ink is out, my pen. Oh, sorry, I can't fax it back to you because this isn't 1988.
Oh, it's the same time he's been done by a fax. He was supposed to go to Real Madrid in 2015, but for a dodgy.
Well, I think that would have been better for Manchester United. I
think it would be better for De Gea as well.
I don't think so, because he was the highest paid player.
Is he the only player to have a comfort blanket at a club of that size for so long? 12 years unchallenged.
I know. The rumour this summer of Andre Onana seems to be gathering a little bit of steam. 60 million they want, 40 million in the United
States. Pay the money.
Yeah.
He is unbelievable.
Yeah, I think if
at
they
the Champions League, it was like, oh my God, this is
If they truly love each other, club and player, they should part ways.
United and De
Gea. It's dead. The relationship is dead. It's lost the love. It's lost the passion.
I used to love those big, when Van der Sar came in or Schmeichel came in. There's always the big name goalkeeper signings, and it feels like
Fabian Barthez.
Yeah, well there you go.
Fabian Barthez.
What a player ahead of his time, like Barthez.
Oh, he was.
From the back. He was brilliant. He was a World Cup winning goalkeeper.
And
short sleeve shirt.
They won,
and the European Championship winning goalkeeper.
Win in spite of him. That was one of the greatest teams.
You can't win in spite of a goalkeeper.
If they'd had a decent goalkeeper, they would have kept winning. If you ever watch back those Premier League years, it's always
it's amazing. Now you had that game against Arsenal at Highbury when he just passed the ball to Henry twice.
What was the one where he let the ball slip under his legs?
That's the same game, I think.
Same one, yeah. Well, yeah, that was when he passed the other one. No, but then he had when he nutmegged Malcolm Christie.
And Ferguson's just looking
Malcolm
at him
Christie.
going,
nutmegged him at right back.
He was just nuts.
Brilliant.
Nuts. But then you had the likes of Van der Howe and Taibbi and these lads as well. Bosnich.
We got to go.
Banter era.
Yeah, we're way over. Ger, enjoy your holidays.
Thanks very much. Enjoy. Tomorrow, Paddy Christie in studio. Adrian and Shane live with Paddy Christie in studio. Shane Murphy, the Irish fitness coach, who's involved with Manchester City All-Ireland football quarter-final build-up. Alan Quinlan on the Ireland under-20s who are in action in 20 minutes time against Australia. Right now we're going to play out with some Paul Rouse talking with Joe Malloy on last night's show. Have a tremendous Thursday.
Now you're very welcome back. So we have been long overdue a visit from our next guest, Mr. Paul Rouse. You are very welcome. Hello.
Thanks, William. Joe, how are you?
Great. The only way we get you in these days is when you have a book to plug. So here we are. Sport in Modern Irish Life. This is a series of essays, stories, observations. The sleeve of the book tells me it is an attempt to capture the sheer variety of experiences available in sport. Is that a pretty good summary of what you're trying to do here?
Yeah, I am. And it's very personal in that respect because, well, any book that anybody ever writes is ultimately an exercise in self-indulgence. You decide what you want to put in and what you want to leave out, and this book in particular is an exercise in self-indulgence. I started it during the lockdown when I've had the great privilege to work for the Irish Examiner for the last 7 or 8 years to write a column for them, and I've loved doing it. And in the course of that, I probably have written 600,000 words over the course of 8 years, and I just started going back through those and picking out things that I thought were okay and using that as the basis to write a book. And it was something that I thought, I'm just going to enjoy myself. I don't really care if anyone publishes this. I'm just going to, for myself, try and see if I can put something together using those bits and pieces, using new things that I wrote and researched for it, just as a way of passing time, if truth be told. And it was fortunately in the end Merriam Press did decide that it was worth publishing. There weren't, by the way, other people didn't want to publish it, so it's not like there was a guarantee in it.
It wasn't a bidding war.
There was no bidding war. But I really, really enjoyed doing it. Okay. It's totally different than what I've done before. Before I've written history books, and this is not really a history book. There are bits of history in it, but it's about modern sport, and it's about, I suppose, my understanding of modern sport.
Yes. It's full of vignettes and standalone thoughts and observations, and this is an interesting thing that tends to happen without any great conclusion. But I suppose the cumulative weight of it all just by definition gives a sense of, God, there is such variety to what sport means in the country.
I never like books or articles or radio stations which present me with a neat box of opinions readily formed in which somebody tells me how I should think. I like someone to make me think, and to say things that are interesting and to assemble them in particular ways. But I never believe a story that's neatly packaged, because I always end up thinking about what has somebody left out.
Yes.
What are the bits that have been inconvenient here to the neat telling of this story that we're going to leave to one side? And I really believe that no book should have a conclusion. Obviously a novel often has to have a conclusion. Not always, but often. And you do want to find out what happens to people, but I think history books that finish with conclusions are, relatively speaking, unconvincing. And similarly, sociology books or exploration of what's happening in our world. I mean, who can really offer a conclusion to the change that's happening in our world at the moment?
Well, indeed. So if you writing a book is an indulgence, can I just be indulged for a brief moment to give an example of one of the little vignettes? And this one just goes across 2 or 3 pages, but I saw Dollymount Strand, and I'm in that neck of the woods routinely. I spend a lot of time on Dollymount Strand, and you actually captured something which has occurred to me, but I haven't really verbalised or strung it all together as such, and given it, the kind of coherent thought that you had. So again, anyone who knows Dollymount Strand, on the Howth Road, you take a right turn over the wooden bridge, and on a windy day, as you drive over the wooden bridge, you will see on the Strand the kites, because kite surfing there is a huge attraction, hugely popular between March and November. And you make the point it's a rejection of the formal world of sport, and that the participants have organised themselves as more of a community as opposed to a club, and there just is a nod and a wink and how you doing, and they've started to get to know each other, and it's that kind of a community, and they're not competing against each other, it's just for the sheer joy of participating. And then you also note the iconic, and people will know them, the modernist yellow bathing shelters built in 1930s Dublin by the corporation. Beautiful in their own way. Like, I've got great affection for them, and again, it's maybe the intention was it would be just for the scorching summer days, but actually you go there every single day of the year, you'll meet someone. And I routinely go there and I talk to strangers there, and it's this lovely hub, not least for men who aren't so good at that, where it starts off with the how's the water today, and within a minute that person you're chatting to is explaining the stress they're under, or the medical condition being the reason as to why they're swimming, and it can, you may never see them again, and it's that lovely thing, and it's all very free. And then 30 yards away from the bathing shelter is Royal Dublin Golf Club, and I would suggest hello money could be in the region of 15 or 20k just to get in the door, and there's a big private property sign. Now, don't get me wrong, I'd love to be in there as well. I love my golf, and so
that's this lovely, like, that, to give people a sense of this book, that's a lovely 2-3 page vignette, a passing moment on a Saturday, just one particular spot, and just all the wonderful array of ways which sport has its fingerprints all over this one little beach.
It's so, for people who don't know Dollymount Strand, it's in Dublin Bay and it's on North Bull Island on the way out to Holt, just past Clontarf, and it didn't exist 200 years ago. So the port walls were built, the Bull Wall was built north and south, and on that there was an accumulation of what was a sandbank, and it grew into an island, and it still is growing out into the sea. It's about 800 metres wide at its largest point and about 5 kilometres long. Now, it matters, I think, for a variety of different reasons. That idea of formal leisure place to play. Brendan Behan described it many years ago as Dublin's Riviera, the place where inner city Dublin emptied out to go to the seaside in that great Victorian tradition from the end of the 19th century onwards, and remade a sporting world and a world of a beach culture out along that place, which is one aspect to it, and that has constantly evolved over the years. But it was originally owned not by Dublin City as it is owned now, although it's partially owned by Dublin Port still, who own the Bull Wall, but the rest of it is owned by Dublin City, apart from the area that's owned by the golf club. So this is where the great gift of doing something that's so self-indulgent that things happen from it. I tried to write about Royal Dublin, and I contacted Royal Dublin to see their minute books and to look at their records, because Royal Dublin was the oldest golf club in what is now the south of Ireland, Republic of Ireland. It was founded actually when laid out first of all in the Phoenix Park in 1885, and then it had rooms on Grafton Street just down from us here, and then moved out first to Sutton, and then from the 1889 to that area that it kind of ended up colonising along there. So I contacted them, and eventually a brilliant guy out there, Shane Darby, contacted me and invited me 3 weeks ago to go and play around out there, which was quite a distressing experience for those who had to witness the swing that was involved, but it was really, really enjoyable.
I didn't have the missed call from you. You must have. Yeah,
funny. I'll tell you. Yeah, it is, you would have been much better sorted by going out there, and I really enjoyed it. But it's a reminder that this is space that is private space. In what the rest of it is public land. So you have 2 golf courses out there, St. Anne's at one end and Royal Dublin on the other, and they own more than 1/5 of the island between them. What is also out there is Ireland's first ever bird sanctuary, which was there from the 1930s. And then you have those informal structures built by Dublin Corporation, as you say, for swimming in. So you have a whole load of different things going on there. You have nature conservation, you have a private golf course, 2 private golf courses, and you have a public recreational space, and the 3 things are not compatible in a small area. So there's a tension between the 3 of them, particularly as environmentalism has grown. And how do you manage those 3 things is really difficult in a city island, even if it is growing. It's not growing quickly enough to accommodate everything, and it's a constant challenge to manage those various different things, and it leads to disagreement. And it shows you also on that island how sport has changed. You know, the way that there's that modern sport of clay pigeon shooting, as kind of, it's in the Olympics, or at least they send them out and they shoot them. That used to take place on the North Bull Island 100 years ago, except they used live birds. They let the birds free, they flew them up, and it wasn't just pigeons, they shot everything that they could possibly find. That was there. As recently as the 1950s and into the 1960s, the Dublin Coursing Club used to bag hares off the island to be chased by dogs in the place. There are now no hares left. It is a symbol of the Bull Island, the hare is, but it's gone from there. The fish, I'm not necessarily sure that if I fished off Dollymount Strand, I would necessarily want to eat that fish. I've been brutal about it. And swimming off it, there are days when you swim off that where it's not great.
Oh, it's a disgrace. I mean, I raised that with Neil Martin actually when he was in studio here a couple of years ago. There are too many parts of the country whereby if it has rained heavily the day before, don't go swimming, is the brutal truth, because there's been a spillage.
And this comes again to investment in sewage infrastructure. I say this as the son of a water engineer, so this comes from investment in sewage infrastructure and in basic systems of water supply. But we do, of course, have an issue because we have to pay for through taxation, through the development of these services, and that's not easy to organise or to encourage people to pay for.
No, to say the least. So, look, that's just one indulgence on my part. It caught my eye across this book, these array of topics. You said it's quite a personal book, so you are a son of Offaly, and you came through from a sporting point of view at a bloody good time as well. So how did that shape you? Because I know you touch on that in the book.
Oh, it was an amazing time to be young and growing up in Offaly. When you think about it now, this county with a population of 60,000 people was competing. For example, when I was 11 in 1981, Offaly played in the All-Ireland football and hurling finals, winning the hurling and losing to Kerry in the football. Come back the following year, robbed by Kilkenny in the Leinster final in 1982 in hurling, but beat the Kerry team that was going for 5 in a row in the 82 final. Now the footballers have only won one Leinster championship since then, but the hurlers went on to win in 85, win in 94, win in 98, and these are days of splendour to for a small county to win in either code at any grade is extraordinary at that stage, and to win in both codes growing up was an incredible thing. And I had a cousin, Charlie Conroy, who was on the 82 panel. He played in the 81 final. He was a brilliant footballer, and as things turned out, my mum is from Road and my granddad was from Road and played in the first Offaly team that had been fielded in Offaly minor team from 1928. He was a selector on the Offaly team in 69 that got to an All-Ireland final. And so you're brought up in this world where sport meant Gaelic games in a formal sense, because that was the only formal sport I played before I was 17. But in the school and in our local area, like where I lived in Durham, within Tullamore Parish, but on the road between Kilbeggan and Tullamore, is a local farm area, and every evening we'd meet up, Lynch's and O'Brien's and Lynham's and Daly's, and pour into a field and play anything depending on what was going on. Play rugby, play soccer, played cricket. There was a local cricket club. We used to liberate some of their equipment to use in the evenings. During the Tour de France, we'd have cycling races around the area. So we recreated that formal world of sport in our informal rural parish, all the way through the 80s, and it was a brilliant time. So you have the formal and the informal, and it was a joy, I think.
Yes, I mean, it already sounds just beautiful, and I'm imagining nice summer evenings as well to go with it.
It never rained, I think, too. In my memory, it never rained.
I hear you. I wonder, are the latest generation having those seasonal flirtations with golf during the Open, or pitch and putt during the Open, and then bikes during the Tour de France? And because there's endless bandwidth on the internet. If you're into one sport, you can just go very deep in that and ignore everything else, whereas we took what we could get at the time and then we indulged accordingly.
Yeah, I think the availability of formal ways to play those sports is much greater now than it was. So it's not just that you see them all the time now. You can actually more or less get into that diversity of experience fairly early, if that's how you want to go. I will say there's a lot spoken about kids, and it's really interesting. I think I go back to my old school in Coláiste in Tullamore every so often, and was Tullamore CBS when I was there, and it really struck me the extent to which kids are very, very similar to the way we were when we were in that school. Nicely abusive to anyone who might consider themselves having something to say to them, and I mean that in a slagging way. They're great kids. Really, it's really enjoyable to chat them. But the one thing that's different, of course, is the most obvious thing of all, which is the phone, which is transforming our world, transforming society, and is only at the early stages of this. And we haven't got close to understanding how it is changing human behaviour. We know that it is transforming human behaviour because of the way in which algorithms are used to shape behaviours and to push people in certain directions and to send them down particular cul-de-sacs in a form of extractive capitalism, which is how these companies make money. So we know it is changing behaviour, but allowing for that. I don't see the kids who are in the school that I was in as being enormously different than I and the group of friends that I had were in that school.
Well, that's a reassuring thought for.
And some of the teachers are still there, which I really like.
And you're realising, how young were you when you taught me, if you're still here now? I guess and you do talk about that elemental pleasure of participation, the joy of kicking a ball or catching or striking a golf ball or you name it. It's such an aspect of sport that watching it provides such pleasure and escapism, reading about it, talking about it, debating it. I think you made the observation that if you took away work and sleep, and I presume the general chit-chat that goes on around the immediacy of family life and who has to be where and who has to be picked up, what do we talk about the most? I mean, aside from the week that's been, where I have a fair sense what people were talking about the most, in the main sports, probably up there for a large quotient to society.
For an awful lot of people, it's what drives the world, both local sport, national sport and international sport. It's the endless churn of sport.
Yeah, I'd say WhatsApp groups, if you could somehow extract the topic percentage for a lot of them.
It's massive, and it's a huge engine of conversation in people's lives and within families of all. And we have had a look at a world without sport, and it was at the start of the pandemic when everything shut down, and what it meant to people's lives. People, so many houses, or many houses, are built on the capacity of people to go training. It is an outlet for people to go training, to go and do matches, to go to matches. And I know certainly for my kids, for example, not having that was very, very strange. And this is a house where what was then an 11-year-old boy who thought that Ludo was a contact sport. So you can see when that stopped, when that was taken away, there was no outlet. Now, there are people who will say, well, good, like might make you think of something else or to push down different avenues, which ultimately seem to me to involve baking banana bread or talking about baking banana bread. And that, to me, it was no substitute, obviously, but it showed what a hold sport had. And even when sport slowly came back, the fact that it slowly came back, I remember actually training the girls' Gaelic football team in Dublin, and after a couple of weeks we got organised and we did Zoom training sessions with athletics fitness and gave them round. We went around and gave everyone a ball who didn't have a ball and set out a practice regime for them, and it was something, but it was no substitute for the collective, being in the same place, in a club, meeting other people, and all that does. It's not. I don't believe sport is inherently good at all. I don't buy that in any shape or form. I wouldn't be blasé about it. I wouldn't be complacent about it. I don't see it as fixing society's ills. I don't believe in the line that, if a kid keeps playing sport, they won't go too far wrong. That's self-evidently not true. There are too many examples of where that isn't the case. Allowing for that, it brings so much colour and joy and interest and focus to people's lives that it is fundamental.
OTB AM with Gillette Labs. Get the ultimate shave or your money back. Neon Night Edition available now.